Chapter 1796. Yi Fan's divine will was extremely powerful. Even the palace built by the primordial emperor, and the countless runes laid down couldn't stop him. He instantly knew who was inside. It's been so many years. How are the two of you? Brother Yi, is it really you? The door of the ancient palace was pushed open, and a man walked out. He was tall and majestic, and his body was as strong as a dragon. His skin was bronze and his long hair was loose. It was very thick, but there were a few strands of white hair mixed in. Demon God? Longmo was shocked. He had seen him on the ancient starry sky path back then. Southern Demon. The Black Emperor sighed. He was one of the geniuses of Big Dipper back then. It had been so many years since they met again. It made people sigh at the passage of time. At that time, Southern Demon was in his prime and full of youthful energy, although his blood energy was still vigorous now. And he had become a peerless expert. He was already over 6,000 years old. Yi Fan also felt rueful in his heart. It was the last time they parted on the ancient starry sky path, and they met again today. In the blink of an eye, thousands of years had passed. If he was an ordinary person, he would have already turned to dust. Southern Demon was extremely powerful, and could be said to be this world's top combat strength. He was also an unconventional cultivator. Behind him, there was another person. She had a tall and graceful figure, but her black hair had already turned white. Although she used her magic power to maintain her youthful appearance, it was clear that she had suffered from the impact of time. It was Qi Huashui, Princess Qi Qi of the Southern Mountains. Meeting again made people speechless for a long time. Youth was fleeting and beauty aged easily. When peerless beauties couldn't withstand the passage of time, they would grow old in the wind and frost. To them, this was the most cruel thing. Who could understand the feeling of watching their youth fade away and their gray hair take root? Yi Fan. Qi Huashui sighed softly. She wanted to say something, but she couldn't open her mouth. She wasn't as powerful as Southern Demon. The marks of 6,000 years on her body were relatively more obvious, and her blood energy wasn't as vigorous. Southern Demon and his sister came over to meet. Yi Fan captured a meteorite and cut it into a stone table and stool. He took out good wine and reminisced with these two old friends. You've become a great emperor? The Southern Demon was astonished. Then he understood. They had been trapped here for many years and too many things had happened. They actually didn't know that Yi Fan had already become a celestial varch, and that the ancient palace was isolated from the world. However, the Southern Demon was not an ordinary person, and would not lose his composure. It's been so many years. It feels good to see you again, Yi Fan said. As the number of people he was familiar with dwindled, he would eventually be defeated in the passage of time. He cherished every single one of his old friends, and did not want anything to happen to them. This is the soul pond left by the immortal Sky Emperor. I already know. Yi Fan nodded. The Southern Demon recounted what had happened. Back then, they had discovered that ancient palace in the void of the universe. When they entered it, they discovered that it was the place where the undying heavenly emperor had once comprehended the Tao. This had shocked them. The brother and sister were cultivating there, but they never thought that as their cultivation level increased, the ancient hall would be activated, and the divine soul pond would shatter the space and arrive. The demonic fog would also appear, surrounding them and trapping them. Fortunately, the ancient palace was special and could prevent the corrosive gas from approaching. As the Southern Demon's cultivation deepened day by day, in recent years he felt confident in leaving. However, he sensed the wonders of the divine soul pond, and was unwilling to leave so easily. Yi Fan sighed softly. The corrosive gas here was extremely powerful, and could even injure supreme beings. It was truly astonishing that the Southern Demon could cultivate to this level. He had already achieved the Tao in a different way. Just as the Black Emperor had speculated, the divine soul pond was the remnant of the undying heavenly emperor's soul after his transformation. Yi Fan stood in front of the pond for a long time. Then he walked around the ancient palace and deeply felt how terrifying the undying heavenly emperor was. He was an unimaginably great enemy. They gathered here for a long time. Qi Huashui was very silent. She was once a peerless goddess, but now, her youth was gradually fading away. She felt sad and found it hard to speak when she saw an old friend. Only when it was time to leave did she sigh softly and say, "You haven't changed much." Yi Fan watched them leave. When they were about to disappear into the starry river, the southern demon turned around and said, "Brother Yi, this might be the last time we meet. Take care." Yi Fan was silent and sighed. If nothing unexpected happened, the southern demon would choose to seal himself and would only reappear after thousands of generations. Goodbye. On the way back, Yi Fan was very silent. Only after a long time did the Black Emperor say, "Let's walk around a bit more. There's nothing to do anyway." Yi Fan nodded. Seeking the method of longevity wasn't something that could be comprehended through seclusion. Since ancient times, so many heroes had been stuck. He naturally didn't believe that he could break through the heavens just by immersing himself in Tao comprehension. This journey lasted for more than half a year. They passed by many star systems and caused a great commotion. The Celestial Emperor's tour caused all races to revere him. Many great races came out to welcome him and invite him in, but they were all tactfully declined. Along the way, they saw many things and sighed inwardly. This glorious era had reached its end, and was truly about to come to an end. Zhang Bairen, Tai Chu, and the others had long disappeared. It was rumored that they had already sealed themselves. They wanted to leave their hopes and ambitions for the future, hoping to defy the heavens and return. Soon after, they saw a few world-shocking bloodlines that were already declining in their later years. There were even more people who were also starting to grow old and show signs of fatigue. Ah, is our youth finally going to end in this flourishing era? Haha, the most resplendent era, the most glorious era. What did I see? Nothing more than this, nothing left behind. In the end, we just hurriedly passed by like this. We are just passers-by, nothing more. Someone was laughing loudly, tears even flowing out. The autumn wind rose, and the yellow leaves withered. This flourishing era was finally going to end. The stars were resplendent. They were so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. So many people with imperial talents fought for supremacy, but in the end, there was only a single celestial emperor who towered above the 9 heavens, overlooking the many generals. The stars grew dim, and the heroes were all sad. Since the legendary era, there was a prophecy that the true immortal path would open in this era. The glorious great Tao would lead to the other shore, directly reaching a world of immortality. However, this similarly came to nothing, leaving people with too many regrets. The immortal realm was just that high and distant. Supreme beings shed tears of blood and heroes grieved. All of this came to an end in this world's legendary era. Countless experts' blood splashed across the starry skies in the great era's struggle, dying. Too many heavenly geniuses were buried in the starry river. 6,000 years of great battles, 6,000 years of glory. Perhaps it would continue for another 10,000 years, but the curtains would still fall in the end. No one could stop it. I used my blood to write sonorous war songs. I used my life to blossom with brilliance, and in the end, I listened to the great sorrow of the world. Is this the end? Many people raised their heads towards the heavens. The heroes of the past were all full of vigor and vitality, but now, their hair had already turned white. Moreover, many of them died, and the remaining ones were already covered in the wind and frost of time. Is it going to end just like this? I am unwilling. What can a golden age do? Long songs were weeping, the tears of heroes flowing. How could they forget? How could they let go? A great era was going to end just like this. The heroes in their prime were all gradually growing old. Their curtains were about to fall. After experiencing a great era, they watched as a world of prosperity blossomed like fireworks. Yet they were going to wither just like this. Yi Fan continued forward, his words becoming less and less. The more he saw, the more silent he became. Was he finally going to send off this era? Look, the heavenly emperor is sending us off, haha. Someone laughed loudly, tears long flowing. Correct, the heavenly emperor is sending us off. He had previously competed with us in the same generation. Heh, haha. Farewell to this era. Sorrowful laughter rang through the skies, staggering into the distance. Yi Fan and the others continued forward, arriving at the ancient land where they had previously fought. This was a star domain that had been shattered during the Dark Age of Chaos, a ruined expanse. At that time, Yi Fan still hadn't become an emperor yet, fighting completely out of hot-bloodedness, carrying the resolution of certain death. He threw himself into the battlefield like a moth flying into a flame. When they turned around, the entire path was mottled with blood. There were ruins everywhere, countless star ruins. The blood of all types of creatures dyed this ancient land red, but it still hadn't dried up. This was a dream-broken star Earth. The people of the past couldn't return anymore. Jeezy, how I wish for you to be alive so that we can drink a cup together, Yi Fan said softly. He thought of many things. There was also the father-like white-robed divine king, and the unparalleled sickly old man Gai Jiuyo. They had sacrificed too much. How can we forget that even though the Sun Saint Emperor was only left with a piece of human skin during the chaos, he still defied the heavens and returned to fight until his blood ran dry. Longma also sighed softly. Back then, in the Ziwei star domain, the human emperor's skin reappeared. Even in death, he still wanted to protect the creatures of an ancient star. And in the end, the last drop of blood flowed from his eyes before falling. There was also the Void Emperor, who spent his entire life quelling chaos until his death. In this era, he still had to shed his last drop of blood. And in the end, only half a broken mirror accompanied him. As they talked about the past, they all sighed. Even Yi Fan had great sorrow, and found it difficult to control himself. Suddenly, the Black Emperor stopped, and Longma also turned his head. Only Yi Fan didn't stop, continuing to walk along this blood-stained battlefield. There was a figure there. It's you. Yi Fan recognized her. It was old man Gai Jiuyo's only disciple, Xia Jiuyo. In the past, she was a genius girl. At the age of 13 or 14, she was able to stand up to the little Peng King, Yao Guang, and Yi Fan, shocking the eastern wasteland. In the past, she was willful and unruly, but in the end, she was defeated by Yi Fan and taught a ruthless lesson. Many years had passed, and this genius girl had changed greatly. She had long grown up, and her clothes were as white as snow. Her face was full of sorrow. Xia Jiuyo was beautiful and moving. She had already reached the quasi-emperor realm several thousand years ago, and her strength was extremely astonishing. However, there were still a few strands of white hair in her beautiful hair. Why are you here? Seeing her, Yi Fan couldn't help but think of Gai Wudi. His heart was filled with grief, and he still remembered the tragic scene of the sickly old man straightening his back and shouting, "Who dares to fight me? I'm looking for master," Xia Jiuyo said. Tears hung on her face, and she looked very sad. After so many years, she had actually been searching in the cosmos. She didn't believe that her master had died. That was her only relative, and she wanted to find him. Yi Fan felt bitter in his heart, and his nose turned sour. Even though he was a celestial emperor, he still couldn't hide this kind of emotion. In the past, he had awakened 300 years after the darkness chaos ended. He had once searched like crazy, but he didn't find anything in the end. Unexpectedly, there was someone even more persistent than him. She had searched for more than 5,000 years, and she was still searching today. The old man doesn't wish for you to be like this, Yi Fan advised in his heart. Master is with me, and he will return. I've found a part of him, Xia Jiuyo said mournfully. Unfortunately, I only found a drop of master's blood. Xia Jiuyo's eyes were filled with tears. She carefully held up a divine crystal, and there was a bright drop of blood sealed within. Was it really left behind by Senior Gai? Yi Fan was greatly grieved. He looked at it for a long time, and then he walked into the depths of the shattered battlefield. He couldn't help but roar towards the sky, his heart filled with too much helplessness and unwillingness. It wasn't just Gai Jiuyo. So many people also appeared in Yi Fan's heart. Too many people and matters had passed away just like that. The past events, day after day, scene after scene, seemed to be right before his eyes. Yi Fan displayed the Emperor Fist. In this ruined battlefield, it struck the 9 heavens, releasing rumbling thunder. There was also a sad song that moved the stars. After the desolate era, the world moved. The Big Dipper beacons were thick. Time stopped, and the ancient race was in chaos. Sword chi rushed into the heavens, and blood dyed the rivers and mountains. Zither and drum sounded, metal spears cried and cold light flickered, illuminating the starry sky, unyielding and unyielding, asking who was the hero under the heavens. Immortal clouds rose, supreme beings appeared, and the path of immortality was fought for tens of thousands of eras. Fight, fight, fight! The starry sky collapsed, and all life trembled. White hair dyed in blood, thousands of corpses, the resentment of young girls in pools of blood, the chaos and war of the mortal world. Blood splashed in the sky, and swords rushed into the heavens. The chaos of 10,000 ages, the lament of the end of the world. Mountains and rivers like blood, who could pull them back? All life called out, and the human emperor fought against the heavens. Blood and tears dried, the world was dark forever. It was hard to see in the void, and the night flower appeared and withered. A sad song could not bury the heroes of 10,000 ages, and half a broken mirror accompanied them. Time was like a knife cutting down the proud sons of heaven. The path of immortality sighed enchantingly. The opening of blood and bones was a sorrowful picture scroll. How many heroes were buried in foreign lands, and how many brilliants could not be seen again. 9 dragons pulling a coffin, stirring up chaos in the world. White hair whistled and sang, and the end couldn't be found on the path of heaven. The emperor's blood burned the starry sky, and the words of the immortal path were eternal. The beauty sighed, and the hero was in his twilight years. The mortal world lasted for 10,000 years, and the immortal path couldn't be seen. Battle. Chapter 1797. Yi Fan roared crazily, hair disheveled, blood energy surging. Emperor fists rumbled, making the stars in the heavens tremble, changing their trajectories along with him, all of them resonating. He moved the sun, moon, and stars, the 9 heavens, 10 earths beneath his feet. Unfortunately, he still couldn't change anything. Those heroes had long passed away many years ago. Meanwhile, what was even more tragic was that the people at his side were also passing away one after another. He could only watch helplessly. Only after a long time had passed did he calm down. What was left in this life? There was only battle. A boundless long life battle diagram was laid out before him, needing him to use his entire life to battle. Xia Jiuyo's white clothes were like snow. Even though she was exceptionally beautiful, she was still extremely wooden. She had been searching for her master's whereabouts for so many years. Right now, she was completely dispirited, walking alone, extremely lonely, heading into the distance. Wait, let me think of a way. Perhaps I can make Senior Guy reappear in this world. Yi Fan called out from behind. When he saw the past genius young lady like this, it was hard for him to calm down. Is there a way? Xia Jiuyo turned around, her eyes carrying watery mist. Meanwhile, the strand of white hair within her fine black hair was especially striking. I am searching for all types of long life methods, just that they aren't all that mature yet. There is one method that I can give a try. Yi Fan said honestly. 6,000 years, most of his time spent comprehending the Tao. He walked quite far on this path, drawing on all of the Tao and paths the ancients could expound. What method? I wish to borrow the power of faith to make Senior reappear in this world, Yi Fan said. However, he sighed inwardly. He knew that the chances were extremely slim, almost impossible to succeed. Only, when he saw the genius young lady grow old, moreover in such a pitiful state, he hoped that he could find a type of spiritual sustenance for her. Of course, this wasn't to say that there was no chance of success. This was the great Tao of Amitabha, something that Yi Fan had previously researched for 500 years, producing many problems. During this process, Yi Fan had previously sighed. That old monk had reached great heights in this Tao, surpassing all previous generations. The Sakyamuni could be considered a rebirth of a portion of his divine will. Can it really succeed? Xia Jiuyo's eyes were filled with tears. After all these years, she felt helpless and sad, but there was nothing she could do. Yes, but I need your help. Yi Fan gave her faith. Good. Xia Jiuyo's eyes flashed with an astonishing radiance. The group returned to the celestial court. After returning, Yi Fan personally built a temple and began to seal gods. This was a shocking move. In the name of the celestial Varch, he established a grand temple in the cosmos. His voice rumbled, shaking the sea of stars and spreading to every region. That day he was incomparably serious, personally presiding over the sealing of the 9 underworlds as a deity. The first wave of willpower that surged towards the divine temple was his celestial emperor will, making that place hazy with golden light, forging a precious body. The second wave of willpower was Xia Juyo's will that was filled with sorrow. Even though it couldn't compare to heavenly emperor will, it was still radiant and holy, pouring in. With a loud explosion, streaks of lightning struck down from the sky as if they were going to punish such a heaven-defying action. After all, this was a great emperor who was trying to become a god, and there was a high chance that he would succeed. Disperse! Yi Fan angrily rebuked. 2 streaks of blazing lightning erupted from his eyes, shattering the lightning tribulation and destroying the heavenly punishment. All of this was completed with a single thought. This kind of mighty power shocked the mortal world. The 9 underworlds' divine temple was grand and magnificent. It stood at the side of the celestial court. As soon as it appeared, auspicious light shone and multicolored colors filled the sky. The sickly elder's phantom appeared indistinctly. This truly shocked many people. The experts of the world were incomparably shaken. Everyone knew that Yi Fan definitely used a supreme technique to construct this divine temple, and touched upon the forbidden domain. The monkey, Pangbo Li Heishui, Dongfang Yi Li Tian Yan Ishi, the Black Emperor, and the others all came. They couldn't help but sigh and pay their respects because the sickly elder was worthy of all of them paying their respects. That day, many experts rushed over from all over the cosmos, all of them sighing in admiration. On the hazy divine position of the divine temple, there really was a figure sitting cross-legged. Yi Fan's method was too heaven-defying. The many experts of the celestial court paid their respects like this, causing the entire divine temple to shine with golden light, and all sorts of strange phenomena were triggered. Because they were all experts, their psyche power was naturally extremely powerful. Is it useful? The monkey asked in private. I don't know, maybe, replied Yi Fan. The inheritance of the flesh and blood was the continuation of life. The transmission of faith was also the immortality of the spirit. Yi Fan studied the Tao of faith, and restored the various ancient techniques of Umitba. The life imprints of the ancestors lived in the bodies of the descendants. And the faith of the experts who had been passed down by the people of the world lived in the hearts of the masses. As long as they were awakened, they might be able to return and create another Gai Jiuyo. This was the fundamental reason why Yi Fan tried this method. Xia Jiuyo was the great priest of this divine temple. From this day onwards, he began to preach to the world. He hoped that more people would remember his master's kindness, and have their psyche power surge over. Of course, this required more concrete and practical actions. She began to do all kinds of good deeds every day. She used her great magic power to appear in the major star regions, in the mortal world, in the cultivation world, to help others. After that, every star that had a giant city of the celestial court built a grand divine temple. It developed everywhere because truly becoming a god required a huge amount of faith power. In the central divine temple built by Yi Fan himself, a drop of blood was sealed in a divine crystal. It contained a powerful wave of life, and was placed in the hand of the hazy divine body. With Yi Fan's current strength, he could naturally use this blood to revive Gai Jiuyo's body. But that would only be the body. It wouldn't have a spiritual sense. Therefore, he didn't do it. Uncle, my father wants to invite you over. On this day, Ji Qingdao rushed over. Although he was no weaker than his father and stood in the quasi-emperor's domain, there were a few strands of white hair on his head. Yi Fan nodded. He took a step out, bringing him back to the ancient star where the Ji family was currently located. This left Ji Qingdao horrified. Was this the methods of a celestial emperor? He felt that he should be able to fight against supreme beings, but compared to Yi Fan, he was still far inferior. After many years, Ji Haoyue's hair had already turned gray, gaining a type of dignity. He was truly like an unrivaled divine king, looking down on the world. Now the Ji family was extremely glorious. The only flaw was that they lost Ji Ziyue. This made many people feel sentimental, missing her greatly. However, because of this, the Ji families might shook the universe. It was because Ji Ziyue became an immortal. She was of the Ji family's bloodline, the descendant of the Void Emperor. As such, she left behind an endless legend. The void mirror is shining, sometimes bright red and resplendent, as if blood is surging. Ji Haoyue took out that half-broken mirror. The mirror's surface was dim. Right now there were no abnormalities, as if it was covered in a layer of rust. The ancient marks recorded the cruelty, glory, and achievements of the past. It had to be said that this was a legendary precious mirror that was dyed in the blood of too many supreme beings. It had a chance of becoming an immortal mirror, much more powerful than ordinary emperor weapons. It only lacked an opportunity. Unfortunately, it didn't wait until the moment of transformation. Back then, Yi Fan had previously studied this mirror, even more so entering the flying immortal star because of it. Unfortunately, he didn't discover any abnormalities with this mirror. Later on, he returned this mirror to the Ji family. He didn't want to see this object and think of them, feeling emotional. This was the first time he held this mirror after becoming a celestial emperor. He immediately felt a wave of fluctuation, a type of life aura. The divine mirror didn't die, lamenting in loneliness. Unfortunately, ordinary people couldn't hear it. I will reforge you. Is there anything you want to tell me? Yi Fan said softly. He displayed matchless magical force, operating great divine abilities. This was the first time he explored the void mirror like this. Things were no longer the same as before. As a celestial emperor, he could do many things he couldn't do in the past. With a hong sound, Yi Fan opened up a hazy space in the void mirror. That was the location of the sealed void. In the past, no one could move it, unable to open it. Even the void mirror himself couldn't do anything, because it was half crippled. At this moment, the hazy void opened up, and a broken half of a bloody corpse fell out. This made Yi Fan's heart grieve greatly. Meanwhile, the usually dignified and steady Ji Haoyue couldn't help but cry out, "Little ancestor." What? He's little ancestor? Ji Qingdao also cried out. Everyone from the Ji family hurried over. They were all alarmed, and a huge commotion broke out. Ji, Yi Fan trembled. He reached out his hands to carry this half of the corpse. His hands were full of blood, and the body was in tatters. There were injuries left behind by a supreme being everywhere. It really was Ji. Yi Fan's heart was trembling. In the battle back then, he had watched helplessly as this broken half of the mirror left with this broken body. After that, he had searched for it for many years, but he couldn't find it. Today he finally saw it. Before the Void Emperor disappeared in the end, he apologetically left his child's body and sealed him in the broken mirror, leaving behind a ray of hope. Yi Fan deduced the truth. Ji was in the mirage where the deity born from the precious mirror should be sitting cross-legged. He was eternally sealed by a mysterious power, and this was also the reason why the broken mirror would occasionally emit multicolored light for so many years. It needed to circulate its essence to seal Ji. On the half of the corpse, the head was still there. Under the situation where Yi Fan concentrated supreme blood essence, a faint fluctuation was actually transmitted over. Ji. Yi Fan shouted loudly. He was so excited that he was trembling. Is little ancestor still alive? His sea of consciousness is already dead, but there seemed to be a bit of spiritual consciousness fluctuation just now. I must save him, said Yi Fan. He carried Ji, and like a sudden clap of thunder, he tore apart heaven and earth and directly returned to the celestial court. On this day, he was in seclusion and no one was allowed to disturb him. He used supreme magic power to defy the heavens and seize Ji's life. Ji, you must come back to life. We three brothers still need to drink to our heart's content. How can we not have you? The monkey rushed over after hearing the news. Even someone as unyielding and domineering as him almost shed tears. He thought about the past when he fought with Yi Fan and Ji against the Heavenly Prince, Huang Shudao, and the 8 divine generals. Yi Fan came out of seclusion and carried Ji's broken body. He plucked the Qilin immortal herb and refined it into Ji's body without hesitation. He's Uncle Ji. He's so pitiful. Uncle Yi Fan, you must save him. The little sacred ape said with a childish voice. It was rare that it didn't jump up and down and cause havoc in the heavenly palace. In the end, Yi Fan built a majestic temple and placed Ji inside to seal him. Of course, it was different this time. He only sealed Ji halfway because he felt that Ji hadn't completely died yet. On this day, thunder rumbled in the celestial court. Auspicious light broke through the 33rd layer of heaven. Yi Fan used supreme magic power to construct the divine altar of creation, hoping to awaken GZ in the future and bring him back to life. Kacha. On the same day, on the ancient Umitba planet, in front of a dilapidated temple covered in weeds, a stone Buddha cracked open. At the same time, a stone golden-winged rock appeared on the shoulder of the Buddha and began to shine. Then it turned golden. Chapter 1798. Yi Fan kept his promise. He recast the void mirror and repaired its body. Over the years he killed Supremes, flattened the life forbidden zone, and smashed many ancient emperor weapons. Although most of them had become scrap metal and lost their divine essence, there were still some celestial materials left. He spent several years reading the void scripture and studying the remaining formation patterns of the mirror, as well as the gods who were still alive. Finally, he repaired it with celestial materials and made the void mirror reappear. He returned it to the Ji family. This matter shook the universe. Who would have thought that there was still a remnant body left behind from the chaotic battle of the dark side? It might be able to recover and come back to life. Then Yi Fan ordered all the cultivators in the universe to search for the broken eternal universe furnace, hoping to save the other hero. This was the first time he issued the celestial Thearka's oracle. This was because he had personally witnessed the eternal universe furnace shattering, accompanying the white-robed Jiang Taishu into the distance. It was also like a broken mirror that was buried in the void. When he saw that scene, he had some doubts. He felt that the two great emperors used the body of their descendants to fight. Maybe they would find a way to protect their descendants in the end. This time, seeing GZ's remnant body confirmed Yi Fan's conjecture. How could he not be excited? That was why he mobilized so many people and ordered the whole universe. Of course, this was not forced. He promised that if someone found a valuable clue, he would give them a complete Tao scripture. And if someone could really deliver the broken eternal universe furnace, Yi Fan promised that as long as he was alive, he would protect the prosperity of this clan. Celestial Thearka's promise was so grand. Naturally, many people were tempted. The Jiang family heard the news and set out. There was hope for the Divine King to come back to life. How could they not tremble? They searched everywhere in the universe. Jiang Yifei, Jiang Kaixian, and Jiang Tingting took the lead. They swept through the universe, wishing they could turn this world upside down and find the Divine King's whereabouts. Not long after, someone came to the celestial court and brought back shocking news. They knew where the eternal universe furnace was. The Herculean Bull Demon clan was definitely a powerful clan in the universe. Although they had never produced an ancient emperor, no one dared to look down on them. In the past, after an earth-shattering battle, a rain of blood wrapped in half a broken divine furnace fell on their ancient star. Even though the emperor weapon was destroyed, it wasn't something an ordinary star could stop. However, the ancient star the clan resided in was extremely mysterious. There was a heavenly cave, and those who went down had never come back alive. The eternal universe furnace fell inside. Then all of the clan's experts acted together, covering and sealing the heavenly cavern. After so many years, when Yi Fan became the celestial emperor and issued such a powerful celestial emperor decree, they finally hesitated. In the end, after some discussion, their patriarchs personally went to the celestial court to inform them of this news. When the celestial Varch set out, who could stop him? Yi Fan brought the old ox devil and descended on this ancient planet in an instant. Then he arrived before heavenly cave with a single step. With a raise of his hand he undid the seal. It was pitch black below, deep and immeasurable. So that's how it is. No wonder it can conceal one's aura. Yi Fan sighed. The universe was boundless and full of secrets as expected. This was an abandoned life forbidden zone, and there were ancient emperor rank formation patterns inside. Moreover, there was more than one. He went deep inside and found the blood-stained broken furnace. He discovered that this should be a life forbidden zone from the chaotic ancient era. Unfortunately, the supreme beings inside had already died of old age, transforming into the Tao. Apart from great emperors, anyone who came here would die without a doubt. They wouldn't be able to walk out of the 5 emperor rank formation patterns. Yi Fan nervously opened the Eternal Universe furnace. As expected, he found half a broken body inside. His hair was white like snow, and his appearance was young. It was precisely Divine King Jiang who had lived a second life. Divine King. Yi Fan called out with a trembling voice. The Divine King had done him a great favor. Without the other party, he wouldn't be where he was today. The Divine King's song sighs at the world. Back then he used divine blood to wash the Tao for him, protecting him as he grew up. Moreover, during the Jade Lake meeting, his zither music intimidated all races. But now there was only a broken body covered in blood. It made people's hearts tremble. The Divine King in White's life was full of ups and downs. After being trapped for many years, he came back alive, but his beauty died in front of him. Thus, he left for the great wilderness and lived a second life alone. There was no happiness, only sorrow. He fought the ancient race, quelled the darkness, and ended up like this. Yi Fan carried his blood-stained broken body back to the Celestial Court. On this day, another temple was built beside the Celestial Court. It was grand and majestic. Yi Fan sealed another great void god. Divine King, come back. He called out, full of emotion. Since he started cultivating, Yi Fan's will was stronger than steel. But recently he had been greatly touched. Gai Jiuyo, GZ, and the Divine King in White were the greatest pain in his heart. Now he finally saw a glimmer of hope. The three majestic temples stood side by side, glowing day and night. The first thread of telekinesis was personally offered by Yi Fan. With the nourishment of the Celestial Emperor's light, the multicolored light broke through the sky. Yi Fan repaired the Eternal Universe furnace and handed it to Jiang Yifei personally. After that, he gave the scriptures to the Herculean Bull Demon tribe and promised to protect them to prosper. The condition was that the tribe did not commit any grave mistakes. Hundreds of years passed. Other than the three god-sealing altars, there was also a small temple and a shack beside it. The small temple was Hua Hua. All these years, Yi Fan had evolved the unparalleled power of the Buddhist faith. It greatly inspired him, so he worshipped himself on the altar to comprehend it. The Buddhist faith did not decline, and the faith was still flourishing. He was a top-notch figure among the Buddhists, and his name had already shaken the world. He could obtain a large amount of faith power. Other than him, the shack also flashed with splendor from time to time. There was an altar there, and the Black Emperor sat cross-legged on it. He looked dignified as well. The Black Emperor had really aged a lot. His satin-like fur had completely turned grayish-white. Most importantly, he was no longer as strong as a bull. His body had shrunk to the size of a normal dog. He also started to study this method of longevity. Unfortunately, he did not gain much. If the power of faith could be looted, he would have jumped up long ago to snatch it. Ayo! Suddenly on this day, Hua Hua cried out loudly. Blood flowed out from the space between his brows, and he fell down from the divine altar. His entire body shone with Buddhist light. This left the Black Emperor shocked, and it also left the Celestial Court's troops shaken. Hua Hua was now the quasi-emperor, and his strength was extremely great. How could this type of unforeseen event happen? Yi Fan the monkey and the others were all startled. They hurried over immediately. This was in front of the southern heavenly gate, so who would dare to plot against Hua Hua? Hua Hua seemed to have transformed into the Tao. His entire body was covered in light, illuminating all directions. He was incomparably divine. Only, blood continuously flowed out from the space between his brows. Yi Fan supported him up, and after a brief inspection he understood everything. He then stood up and said, "You even dare to touch my disciple?" He stood in front of the southern heavenly gate, and with a slash of his right hand, the void was torn apart. He then forcefully grabbed out, and the entire ancient Amitabha star began to tremble, rumbling with noise. Celestial Emperor. Celestial Emperor is angry. All the creatures on the ancient Amitabha star trembled, feeling the might of the great emperor. There wasn't a single one of them who didn't tremble and kneel down. However, this situation didn't continue for long. The Celestial Emperor's hand grabbed a stone Buddha and disappeared from this place. The great crack in the void closed. This left everyone horrified. This was the Celestial Emperor's methods. He stood in front of the southern heavenly gate and there were countless galaxies between them. Yet he was able to investigate this place with a single move. On the stone Buddha, a golden-winged great pung spread its wings and took to the sky. It struggled with all its might, but it couldn't escape from Yi Fan's palm. It wasn't a material object and was forged from the power of faith. However, it was extremely powerful, able to look down on the heavens and attack unyieldingly. What is your relationship with the Amitabha Buddha? Yi Fan asked. I am the protector of the Buddha. I had once come into being, and was the uncle of the Sakyamuni Buddha. It chanted Buddhist sounds, and it was extremely astonishing. Even ordinary quasi-emperor wouldn't be its opponent. Everyone was shocked, especially Pangbo, whose brows stood on end. He was an earthling, so he naturally thought of the legendary golden-winged Great Pung King. Why did you use a secret technique to injure my disciple? Yi Fan exuded power without being angry, causing this golden-winged Great Pung to tremble. It no longer struggled and landed in his palm. I am searching for the future Buddha. Yi Fan glanced at Hua Hua and immediately understood. Back on Mount Meru, he had already guessed that Hua Hua might be the future Buddha from the Buddhist gate. I found him. The golden-winged Great Pung King looked at Yi Fan with a type of reverence. Celestial Emperor, please allow my Buddha to return. Yi Fan didn't say anything. After a moment, he woke Hua Hua up and let him choose. There was a Buddha's relic on Mount Meru, but that wasn't the ultimate divine object for his revival. There was another nirvanic Tao fruit that existed on the ancient Amitabha star. It had been dead for hundreds of thousands of years, waiting for new life. It extracted the true consciousness of the past Buddha from the hearts of all living beings and gathered it bit by bit, condensing it into a stone Buddha. In the past, the nirvanic Tao fruit had been divided into three. The main consciousness entered Shakyamuni's sea of consciousness, and a part of the auxiliary consciousness entered the body of the western desert old monk. Later on, it crossed the shore with Yi Fan and entered Hua Hua's subconscious. The other part had always been in the stone Buddha on the ancient Amitabha star. I will always be me, not someone else, Hua Hua shouted after waking up. He chose the same path as Shakyamuni, not being Amitabha Buddha, and only being himself. Alright, the path is under your own feet. This is your own choice. The golden-winged Great Pung began to burn, turning into flames of faith that melted the stone Buddha. Specks of light flew up from the lava and entered Hua Hua's body. However, at this moment, Hua Hua's heart trembled again. The Buddha was merciful and didn't force him. He couldn't steal his heart and chose to fuse with it. Amitabha Buddha, only today do I know that I am me. When the rain of light disappeared, Hua Hua's precious appearance was solemn as he chanted the name of Buddha. Everyone was shocked. Could it be that the Amitabha Buddha had really revived? The methods of the Buddhist gate were just too terrifying. Master. Hua Hua bowed towards Yi Fan. Are you still Hua Hua? The Black Emperor asked. Amitabha Buddha has long passed away in meditation. Of course I am Hua Hua. It's just that there are a few more scriptures and insights in my sea of consciousness. Hua Hua replied truthfully. He couldn't bear it, and wanted to accept the remnant spiritual consciousness. In the end, he was the one who obtained it. Is good karma repaid? The Buddhist gate's karma is used on oneself. The Black Emperor muttered. Then he unceremoniously slapped down with his claw, smashing into Hua Hua's bald head. Kung Chong sounds rang out and sparks flew in all directions. The golden-winged Great Pung didn't disappear. It turned into a demon-subduing pestle. This was a weapon forged from the power of faith, and it landed in Hua Hua's hands. In the future, you and Qingyang will protect these three temples. Yi Fan said. There were no more suitable people than them. Hua Hua's gains on the path of faith should be great, and Heavenly Master Zhang Qingyang was also proficient in this Tao. Hua Hua immediately frowned. Time passed. This year, Yi Fan was 6,500 years old. During these years, his blood energy actually flourished even more, and was always on the path of ascension. This was truly shocking. Boom. The sound of tribulation came from the celestial court with great momentum. Pangbo revealed a joyful expression and said, Wenchang has finally taken that step. Everyone revealed strange expressions. Zhang Wenchang was definitely a weirdo in the celestial court. With friends and relatives like Yi Fan and Pangbo, the contrast was too great. His cultivation progress was extremely slow. For thousands of years, he was constantly surpassed by the younger generation after generation. However, he was always improving, advancing in an orderly manner, and finally he slowly caught up. Every time, he would only break through when his lifespan was exhausted and enter a higher realm to extend his life. This always made people's hearts beat faster. This time it was like this again. He looked like he was about to die of old age. 6,500 years old, he finally broke through from the Saint King realm to a higher realm. Not to mention in the celestial court. Even in the entire ancient times, there weren't many people who dared to do this. Other people did it when they were young and vigorous. Only he broke through when he was so old that all his teeth were about to fall out. This made people extremely worried, afraid that he would die prematurely. However, Yi Fan's evaluation of him was very high. He said that Zhang Wenchang didn't have a short life, and his lifespan wouldn't be shorter than a peerless expert's. Wenchang broke through again. According to tradition, he has to return to his homeland to take a look. Yi, are you still not going back? Pang Bo asked. I'm going back, Yi Fan said. Okay, this time we'll go back together. Pang Bo was excited. Chapter 1799. A water blue star was right in front of them. It was beautiful and sparkling like a blue diamond adorning the starry sky. A few space vehicles would appear from time to time. They were like rays of light streaking across the sky. It was extremely beautiful. Yi Fan stood in outer space and looked down quietly. The sun and moon were like shuttles and time was like an arrow. 6,000 years had already passed. Looking back, what had he gained and what had he lost? He had been thinking about the distant starry sky battlefield all these years. What kind of time had it been? Both Zhang Wenchang and Pang Bo had come back more than once. Zhang Wenchang had to come back after his tribulation. In his words, it was a new life, so he had to come back to take a look. Pang Bo, on the other hand, brought his descendants to experience the customs of his hometown. It was an important journey in his life. As for Yi Fan, he had many misgivings in the past. His enemies were too powerful, so he was afraid of drawing the flames of war here. He had always restrained his impulse and feelings of returning. Later on, he was unrivaled in the heavens and earth and should have no such misgivings. However, his inertia had always prevented him from moving and turning back until today. I'll go down first. You guys take your time to watch, said Longma. It stirred up a stream of lightning and rushed into the star below. Yi Fan and the others also descended. With a flash of light, they appeared on a mountain peak. Spiritual energy was dense here. Humans were developing, and the environment of the present Earth had improved greatly. It was now suitable for cultivation. Of course, this was also related to the essence energy that the 99 Dragon Mountains had begun to leak out. This was the fundamental reason. I'll be leaving first. After returning to Earth, Zhang Wenchang was very quiet. He didn't say much and left alone. When he entered the starry sky back then, his wife was pregnant and couldn't stay by her side. This was his life's regret. Later on, he found out that his wife had met a good man. With regards to this, he could only cry loudly on the other side of the starry sky and then silently watch and bless her. There were many ancient formations on Earth. After 6,000 years, people already knew that this land was far larger than they had imagined. They could already use scientific methods to uncover some of the dust-covered mountains and rivers of history. Now the civilization here was developed. Not only was there resplendent technology, but there were also cultivators in the mortal world. This had long been accepted by the people. Master, Martial Uncle. When Yi Fan and Pang Bo arrived at the celestial island of Panlei, an old man with white hair and a youthful complexion flew over and paid his respects. He was Yi Fan's former registered disciple, Zhang Yifan. More than 6,000 years had passed, and he had been the great sage for many years. However, in the end he was unable to withstand the passage of time, and he was already so old. In comparison, Yi Fan was still young and full of vigor. He looked like he was in his 20s, and time had not left any traces on his body. This place became the base of the celestial court on Earth. The island was very big, like a continent. However, it did not appear in the mortal world, so it was difficult for outsiders to find it. Many disciples revealed strange gazes when they looked over. because he was too young, far more tender, than their founder, Zhang Yifan. This kind of contrast was too great, too strange. Why aren't you guys coming over? This is your true founder, Zhang Yifan said. Panlei was shaken. Countless disciples rushed over, enough to number in the tens of thousands. Now the celestial court had become the most powerful inheritance on earth. It was incomparable. They had long since known that the founder had become an emperor in the cosmos, and was known as the celestial emperor, invincible in the 9 heavens and 10 earths. However, they had never seen or heard of the founder's return. Today Yi Fan's sudden arrival caused a great earthquake. The disciples who were training outside also rushed over at the first moment, incomparably excited. Master! The next moment, Yu Weiyu and Yan Xiaoyu, the immortal couple on Panlei, woke up from a deep level of seclusion, and came out to pay their respects. They and Zhang Yifan were both Yi Fan's registered disciples. Their aptitudes were extraordinary, and they had been to the Celestial Court's headquarters in the depths of the starry skies several times. What a pity, junior apprentice Sister Phoenix Goddess has passed away. Yu Weiyu sighed softly. Humans would grow old, get sick, and die, and cultivators were no exception. Even the few of them might follow in her footsteps after 1,000 years. It was difficult to reverse. Little sister Su Yi, she's also. Yan Xiaoyu said softly. She knew that she was the daughter of the master's confidant in the mortal world. I already know. Yi Fan sighed softly. So many years had passed, and it was impossible for his old friend Su Qiong to still be in the mortal world. She had long turned into yellow soil, and this made people powerless to defy the heavens. And Su Qiong's daughter, Su Yi, was young and lively back then. She was the little demoness in the eyes of Komatsu. Although she later embarked on the path of cultivation, she had finally passed away on this island after 6,000 years. 2,000 years ago, when Komatsu received the news, he had cried loudly. During his days on Earth, he and Su Yi had once been best friends. Now that Komatsu had been sealed and couldn't come here, he would most likely feel sad even if he didn't. The past events of the mortal world had all disappeared with the passage of time. His friends and relatives in the mortal world back then no longer existed. Yi Fan could only let out a long sigh. Pangbo patted his shoulder and didn't say anything. He had come back several times to search for his parents and big brother's descendants. He was also very sad. Master, this way please, said Zhang Yifan. They walked into a cemetery behind Panlei Island. There was an ancient tomb here. It had existed for a long time, but it had been taken care of from time to time. The surrounding flowers and plants were fragrant, and snowy maples were everywhere. This was his parents' tomb. It had been moved here by Zhang Yifan and the others. That was because thousands of years had passed, and the blue sea had turned into mulberry fields. The outside world changed with each passing day, and the changes were too great. I want to be alone for a while, Yi Fan said to everyone. He had long heard that his parents' tomb was here. Even though his cultivation level was high, he still felt sad and his eyes became blurry. The crowd retreated and didn't disturb him again. Yi Fan sat alone in front of the tomb. No one could hear what he was whispering. They only looked at his back and felt very lonely. He passed the night like this without moving. Only at noon did he get up and walk to another tomb. Looking at the 2 words Su Yi carved on it, he couldn't help but touch it gently. He stood there for a long time. When Yi Fan walked out of the cemetery, the crowd couldn't see anything. They only felt that he was very lonely, but they didn't have the violent mood swings they had imagined after great sorrow. Only Pang Bo understood that those mortal years were more precious than anything in Yi Fan's heart. But in the end, they were lost and couldn't come back. In the next few days, Yi Fan explained the deeper level of comprehension of the great Tao to his disciples. He then left. He wanted to walk alone. Mount Longhu, Mount Gazao, Mount Zhongnan, Mount Amei, and other places left Yi Fan's footprints. Unfortunately, it was difficult to find an old friend in the world. The sect masters of the past had passed away many years ago. Daoist Qi Ri, Kunlun's sect master Xuechen, and the Immortal Sword sect's sect master had all broken through to the Saint Realm. But in the end, they all passed away. Yi Fan walked into the mortal world. In the center of the city, row upon row of skyscrapers rose from the ground. In the distance, The environment was beautiful and the gardens were orderly. Spaceships flew across the sky from time to time, flashing with colorful lights. This was no longer the city he was familiar with. It had changed a lot. He came to the outskirts, but he couldn't find anything of the past. Yifan walked past a few old places, and suddenly stopped. He caught a familiar fluctuation in the distant quiet villa area. He walked forward. "It's you." The door opened, revealing a beautiful face looking at Yifan in front of the lawn. It was a woman. Although she still looked young, her hair had long turned white. She looked at him in a daze and then came to her senses. She smiled and said, "You're back." She was Lin Jia, one of the people who crossed the starry sky and reached the other side. Later, she had a great opportunity to become the disciple of the old woodcutter. When the palace was merged into the celestial court, she left. She had white hair and a beautiful face. If it wasn't for her great strength and ability to preserve her beauty, she would have aged. Lin Jia invited Yifan into the house. She made him a cup of light green tea and put it on the table. This startled him, and he fell into memories of the past. Back then, he liked to make a cup of light tea, sit in front of the window, and read all kinds of books. It was a kind of enjoyment. After so many years, he had almost forgotten the feeling of the past. "You're very nostalgic. You still live in the original city," Yifan finally said. "I'm tired. I just want to spend my life in peace. Some of the good things of the past are worth remembering," Lin Jia said. Tired, she revealed her true feelings. She was tired of everything in the starry sky, so she came back to reintegrate into the city. The old woodcutter had two disciples. One was Lin Jia, and the other was Zhou Yi. They chose different paths. Zhou Yi did not give in and kept moving forward. He had long broken into the quasi-emperor realm. He studied the 8 trigrams, and his strength was unfathomable. He was famous in the starry sky. With the disappearance of the palace, he did not join the celestial court. Instead, he chose to fight on his own, hoping to reach the top and enter the realm of the great emperor. However, more than 6,000 years had passed, and he was also old. At this time, he was looking at his hometown in the starry sky, his hair mixed with a few strands of snow. "I'm not the only one who came back. Yi is also tired. There's also Cade. He's old but not old at heart. He became the god of light in the west," Lin Jia said with a smile. At this time, Longma had strolled to the west. He was a guest in the divine light court, and was making a lot of noise. "I say, yellow hair, you're really something. Not only did you run away from Mount Meru, but you also ran away after joining the celestial court. Now, you're actually becoming a god yourself. Do you really want to compete with the god you speak of?" Longma took big gulps of wine, and chatted merrily with Cade in a temple of light in the depths of the void. Around them, some angels of the winged race were waiting on them. They all looked at each other. They really did not know where this divine being came from to make their master god personally accompany him. No matter how they looked at it, this person was like a great demon. In the villa area, Lin Jia sighed softly and said, "More than 6,000 years have passed. I wonder how many people from back then are left." Yifan thought about it. There were more than 30 people from back then, but there really weren't many left now. He said, "Other than you and me, there's still Zhou Yi, Cade, Pengbo, Zhang Xiling, Lu Yi, Zhang Wenchang, Wang Ziwen, and Li Xiaoman." Lin Jia sighed, then suddenly said, "Why don't we have another gathering on Mount Tai? I still feel like I'm in a great dream. I really want to wake up." Yifan extended his divine sense, and invited Peng Bo and Zhang Wenchang over. The two felt strange, but in the end, they both agreed to Lin Jia's suggestion. "Are we going to find everyone from the starry sky?" Zhang Wenchang asked. Several days later, the sun rose from the peak of Mount Tai. Clouds rose and rosy clouds rose. It looked like a fairyland. After nearly 6,500 years, the same people were standing here again. They looked up at the sky as if they were waiting for something. Chapter 1800. Amidst the morning glow, they stood side by side and gazed into the distant sky with complicated expressions. Those who should have come were all here. Wang Ziwen was originally on Heavenly Armament Ancient Star. He was the same as Lu Yi, who was hiding on Earth. Their cultivation talents couldn't be considered too heaven-defying. Now the two of them had white hair and appeared old. They had reached the later years of their lives. Kai was very special. He wasn't the quasi-emperor, but he had come into contact with the power of faith and was nourished every day. Although he was also old, his blood energy wasn't too damaged. After so many years, Zhou Yi's strength was extremely astonishing. His might shook the cosmos and he could be considered a proud son of heaven. His eyes were resolute and his heart had never wavered. Although he and Lin Jia were disciples of the same master, their choices were different. He wanted to strive forward and become a supreme expert in the cosmos, achieving the Tao and becoming an immortal. Among these people, Zhang Xiling and Li Xiaoman were the most special. They were in a half-dead state because they were originally under the ancient abyss. Yi Fan had brought them out. In the present world, only the celestial emperor could do this. Only he had the face to do so. Otherwise, anyone who intruded would be killed. However, these two were very wooden. Only a little of their divine sense had recovered. Yi Fan had communicated with them before, and asked if they were willing to return. At his level of strength, there was nothing he couldn't do. However, he could revive them because they weren't truly dead. The two didn't reply immediately. Their divine sense fluctuated as if it was fluctuating violently. Yi Fan, Lin Jia, Wang Ziwen, Zhou Yi, Li Xiaoman, Kai Pengbo, Zhang Xiling, Lu Yi, and Zhang Wenchang. A total of 10 people. This was a strange group that stood quietly on Mount Tai. The cosmos was so vast. Not everyone lived in seclusion on Earth. Only the celestial court had the ability to gather them and find them. It was still the people of the past, but there were a lot fewer. Those people could no longer be seen. Back then, they had set sail from here and set foot on the starry sky. They had an unimaginable life. Unfortunately, the miracle didn't happen a second time. They didn't wait for anything and couldn't wait for anything. They had long been mentally prepared for this. This was just a gathering. It was truly wonderful to be able to gather again after 6,500 years. Lin Jia smiled, but tears rolled down her cheeks. She said, "Life is but a dream. Why should I be so stubborn? Cherish and enjoy every day. I hope that every one of us will be happy in our dreams." She smiled and shed tears. She came over to hug everyone and bid her final farewell. Everyone knew that after this farewell, it would be difficult for them to meet again. "I'll accompany you on your final journey in the dream," Louis said. Not everyone would choose to return to Earth. They would be in different parts of the universe, and would have their own dreams. "On the road, my dream continues. I will fight to the end," Zhou said. He had never been as determined as he was at that moment. "Now, I don't have any lofty ambitions. On the heavenly weapon's ancient star, I'm very satisfied living with my descendants," Wang Ziwen said calmly. Everyone knew that he had made a good choice and would certainly be very happy. But after reaching this step, who could truly let go of their profound strength? Kaida said, "Oh, my wish in this life is to find God and talk about the ideals of life. I want to ask him why he sent me to the starry sky. I've been a vegetarian on Mount Meru for so many years. I'm very grateful to him. But after I became the god of light, I felt that there was no more hope for me in this life. Time has cut off the great meeting that should have been between us." Yi Fan didn't say anything. His hands began to move, evolving a supreme divine ability. He wanted to trace the source of Mount Tai's past. That was because he was unwilling to give up. He wanted to find out the truth behind the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. Nothing is greater than the mountain, and history is greater than it. This was Mount Tai. This was the truest evaluation of the ancient people. It was endlessly mysterious and was regarded as the place where all things were born. Yi Fan's hands turned a faint golden color. Thunder rumbled as if countless ghosts and deities were nearby. They tore apart the void and helped him explore the past and present. Peng Bo's expression changed. He knew that Yi Fan had used all of his strength and used a forbidden method. Today, he was already a celestial emperor. It was unknown how many years it had been since he had taken action with his full strength. This was truly astonishing. Boom. The world seemed to have been overturned. Then countless ancient people appeared on Mount Tai. They built altars and offered sacrifices to the heavens. They were incomparably divine. A grand sacrificial sound rang out. It was so loud that even the deaf could hear. It made people feel like they were about to comprehend something. They wanted to kneel down and kowtow to the deities. Yi Fan was using a forbidden method to traverse the past and present, tracing the source. He hoped to obtain a clear explanation. The sages of history appeared one after another. They all stood on Mount Tai. Many people ascended into the sky, entered the Stargate, and stepped into the cosmos. The ancient 72 emperors naturally weren't true great emperors. It was just a title. Yi Fan saw it. Boom. The noise became even more astonishing. In the end, it traced back to an extremely ancient era. It was suddenly obstructed by a figure, difficult to see through. That was a great emperor. It was extremely indistinct and couldn't be seen clearly. However, it blocked there, difficult to pass through. When using this type of secret technique, he feared encountering great emperors and ancient emperors. They were too powerful, able to erase all traces of the past. There was no way to continue tracing back. Yi Fan frowned. This type of secret technique from the Vedas was already useless. The space between his brows shone. He used the forbidden secret technique from the celestial emperor scriptures he created. Divine lightning rumbled and blazing lightning flickered. In the end, he pierced through that person. The celestial emperor's divine abilities were matchless. He continued to trace back to Mount Tai's source, hoping to see everything that had happened in the past. He traced back from the desolate era to the archaic era, but in the end he was obstructed again. Moreover, it was several figures. In the end, he passed through with great difficulty. During this process, he saw 9 dragons pulling coffins back to Mount Tai several times before setting off again. However, each time, it was extremely difficult for Yi Fan. It was also a difficulty that obstructed his exploration. However, the bronze coffins didn't bring anyone away during those times. In the end, he reached the legendary era. This time, the obstruction was even greater. Blood flowed out from the corner of Yi Fan's mouth. Peng Bo and Zhang Wenchang were overwhelmed with shock. They knew that Yi Fan was defying the heavens. He used this type of secret technique that shouldn't exist in this world, injuring himself. No one could continuously travel through the river of time. However, Yi Fan went against the flow. The heaven and earth wouldn't tolerate it. It was fine if others traced back a period of time, but he went back to the legendary era. Emperor Venerable, is that him? This time, when the void image appeared, everyone saw a cauldron above his head. It was exactly the same as the green copper cauldron. Yi Fan coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. He was injured once again, but it didn't stop. That was just a void image in the end. Although it blocked his forbidden technique in the river, and made it difficult to explore, it wasn't a real person. In the end, it was still penetrated. Going against the flow, the river of time seemed to have collapsed. Yi Fan traced back to the end of the legendary era, but he still couldn't see anything. Moreover, at this time, a barrier appeared. It was difficult to cross. He couldn't go against the flow of time anymore. There was a limit to one's strength. Even though Yi Fan was a celestial emperor with matchless strength, he still couldn't completely pass through time. However, he wasn't discouraged and continued to work hard. "Break for me!" Yi Fan shouted. He continuously coughed out blood, and his body was on the verge of collapse. In the end, with a honglong sound, he actually smashed through that barrier and entered another era. Chaotic ancient time. Then he saw a person standing at the peak of Mount Tai. He was the only one in the heavens above and earth below. His aura was indescribable. The Mount Tai of that time wasn't like this. It was too majestic. The sun, moon, and stars were all insignificant in comparison. It floated in the cosmos and wasn't on any stars. Then he saw that person break Mount Tai. The most majestic part floated high into the sky and rumbled. "It's that!" Yi Fan's eyes lit up. A golden beam of light shot out from his eyes. That was actually the heavens. The main part that was cut off was the 9 vast dragon veins connected to a coffin-shaped island. The Mount Tai of today was abandoned, and what was left of it? The greatest mountain was it, and the greatest was it. After that, Yi Fan saw that person bury himself in a bronze coffin. The 9 dragons pulled the coffin and soared into Burial Island. Then he left the heavens and entered the cosmos. It's someone from chaotic ancient time. Yi Fan withdrew his secret technique. Rumbling sounds came from his body as his injuries healed. Blood stopped flowing from the corner of his mouth. After so many years, he was actually injured. This could be considered quite a miracle. If this news spread to the central region of the cosmos, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Could it be the true celestial emperor? Pengbo frowned. The more he understood, the more chaotic his state of mind became. Some people believed that the ancient heaven created by Dizun during the legendary era was an imitation of the ancients. Some ancient sovereigns believed that in that unknown era, there was a vast dynasty created by the master of the ancient desolate tower. He was the true celestial emperor. Dizun's name was also borrowed from celestial emperor. Is this a reincarnation? The 9 dragons pulling the coffin began at Mount Tai, and will return to Mount Tai. We set sail from here. Yi Fan muttered to himself. Is it the celestial emperor who is reincarnating? Zhou suddenly asked. There are no reincarnated people. There are only reincarnated old things. Yi Fan said calmly, tracing back to the source. Everything is to search for immortals. All the changes in the cultivation world since ancient times were caused by immortals. Many days later, Zhang Xiling was saved by Yi Fan. His spiritual sense recovered. He was very excited and emotional. He followed Zhang Wenchang to the celestial court. Li Xiaoman chose to step into the abyss of the ancient desolate era, and did not look back. Looking back, 6,500 years had passed. The past was scattered with the wind. They met on Mount Tai and parted. Some people would stay forever. The matters of the mortal world were over. Yi Fan strode forward. He would not be affected by the matters of earth in this life. He did not leave immediately. Pang Bo and Longma came to the core of Kunlun, the land of immortality. The formation was densely packed and stole the fortune of heaven and earth. However, it could not stop the celestial emperor, Yi Fan. They arrived and saw the dragon head peak. The divine spring gurgled, and the fragrance of medicine assailed their nostrils. This place is a miracle, Pang Bo exclaimed. He saw many medicine kings, just like the Medicine King Garden. In reality, the number of medicine kings had decreased significantly. They had all turned into essence and fed back to earth. Otherwise, there would not be such a suitable place for cultivation. If the celestial court is in trouble one day, this place might become a life-saving place, Yi Fan said softly. He began to search and study this place in detail. As expected, it was the arrangement of the venerable emperor and an origin emperor. To be more precise, the origin emperor was the underworld emperor. Moreover, Yi Fan also saw a name in the formation, Chao Yusheng. Tribulation celestial being Chao Yusheng. This was carved by the underworld emperor himself. That was his first life and the root of his pursuit. He was reborn from the corpse of a celestial being. The underworld emperor knew that he did not have much time left and carved his own name. Tribulation celestial being and the underworld emperor were the same physical body, not the same primordial spirit. In this life he is Duanda. Longma shouted. Duanda is digging up the great secret underground. Is this out of instinct? His subconscious is making him search. He wants to find everything from the past, Pang Bo said. Chapter 1801. Yi Fan stayed here for half a month and studied the formation. Then he seriously supplemented and rearranged this place, making it even harder for the outside world to break in. The most important thing was that he left behind the celestial emperor's imprint. He bestowed this formation with true life. It was as if he was here personally. As long as he didn't die, unless he was defeated, the formation couldn't be broken. Pang Bo looked at the immortal pond and felt a wave of fascination. That place was like a broken placenta. Did an immortal artifact really form here back then? It made him want to lie down and try. This world is naturally mysterious and wondrous. The ancestral land of the immortal mountain can actually nurture an immortal artifact. When Yi Fan heard this, he shook his head and said, that might not necessarily be the case. That period of time is too ancient. Who can say for sure? Perhaps the immortal bell existed long ago, refined by someone and buried in the Kunlun realm. The so-called venerable emperor letting the immortal mountain nurture a second precious artifact might just be using it to refine it. Munch. Longma was the most honest. It bit off a king medicine in one bite. Its mouth was full of brilliant colors as it wolfed it down. Yi Fan shook his head. This fellow was just too greedy. In the past, it had already eaten a few king medicines, and had long developed a so-called resistance to them. It didn't have much use anymore, yet it still didn't give up. It's really useless. Longma said embarrassedly. Then it howled. The heavens are jealous of geniuses. I haven't even become an emperor yet. How can the heavens bear to accept me? Naturally, it also showed signs of aging. Like the afternoon sun, it was no longer at its peak, and would become increasingly dim in the future. With a honglong sound, Yi Fan tore open the void and made this immortal land disappear. It was as if it had disappeared from the human realm. After wandering around here for a few more days, Yi Fan studied the formation, and comprehended the great Tao. After understanding enough, he got up and was about to leave. Suddenly, a little white tiger rushed out. It was only a foot long and a sweet fragrance wafted through the air. Tao laws curled around it, and auspicious light shot out in tens of thousands of streaks. It was extremely mysterious and astonishing. It's the immortal medicine. Pengbo was shocked. During these days, Yi Fan had long noticed it. In reality, he had already noticed its traces when he first came here, just that he didn't see it clearly at that time. In the past, this undying divine medicine ran away like a frightened little rabbit, not willing to come over. But now, it seemed to be throwing caution to the wind. It took the initiative to show itself, and transmitted a weak spiritual wave, asking Yi Fan to take it with him. Yi Fan was deeply moved. He had also reached this step, and the undying medicine had taken the initiative to follow him. In the ancient times, almost every great emperor would raise an immortal medicine to accompany them for a lifetime. It was rumored that the medicine contained a shocking secret. Then come with me, Yi Zichen said. There were only a few immortal medicines in this world, and each one was unique. This was the well-known white tiger divine medicine. It was shaped like a small white tiger with leaves, roots, and other things. Its entire body was snow-white like jade, multicolored light brilliant, immortal energy rising. It had long uprooted itself from the ground and flew over. Then it entered Yi Fan's cauldron, hoping that the great emperor could protect it so that it didn't have to worry about outsiders plotting against it. Yi Fan left the immortal ascension pool. Divine light flickered in the outer region, and an old knotweed appeared. It similarly released endless auspicious light. He had seen it before in the past, and it was a stalk of half-divine medicine. Back then, the old knotweed had told Yi Fan that the great emperor had come, and the undying medicine was willing to accompany him, but was refused. It had also told him that the Yangxiang clan had come, and later on, the ginseng fruit tree left together with it. Great Emperor, can you bring me with you? The old Polygonum multiflorum seemed to be extremely moved. It never thought that the youth it met back then would become a great emperor today. It only had weak divine consciousness fluctuations. Just like the undying medicine, it couldn't cultivate. You don't need to do this. It's fine if you live in seclusion at the center of immortal ascension. No one will harm you. Yi Fan said after thinking for a bit. He tore open the void and sent the old knotweed into the central precious earth of the place of immortal ascension. He thought about many things. There was no immortal inheritance in this world. If one day, the celestial court would also decline, then this might be a pure land worth defending. He knew that Changbai Mountain still had a stock of half-divine medicine, the ancestral ginseng. However, he didn't care about it and left just like that. The matters of his hometown were settled. Yi Fan severed all ties with the mortal world, and thus ascended into the sky, never to look back. His most precious memories were left here. He would never forget them, and it was difficult to erase them. However, in the endless years to come, he would only occasionally look into the distance from the other side of the starry sky. 6,500 years old. He was like the sun at high noon, and he was still rising. However, the people around him were all beginning to grow old. Yi Fan decided to continue walking along the path of the heavenly road, and visit old friends from all over the world. This might be the last time he would see them. The Big Dipper, the southern region, and the Spirit Ruin Paradise were still there. However, a new location was built next to the original ruins. Back then, after the dark upheaval, the Big Dipper had been torn apart. Many mountains and rivers had been completely changed. The new location was still not big. The spirit ruin paradise was still a small sect, but the fact that its inheritance hadn't been destroyed was its greatest fortune. Yi Fan and Pangbo's journey of cultivation had begun here. Master, I've come to see you again. Pangbo felt a lump in his throat as he walked into the ruins. There were many tombs in the ruins. Although they were a bit old, it was obvious that they weren't overgrown. People often came here to take care of them. There was an ancient tomb with the 3 words Wu Qingfeng carved on it. Pangbo shed tears. That was his true master, and also the person who had led Yi Fan onto the path of cultivation. The old man had passed away more than 6,000 years ago, but he was still unforgettable. Although he had passed away, he was still very famous in the Big Dipper. That was because he had once taught a great demon, Pangbo, who could be considered the Celestial Emperor's guide. Therefore, although the Spirit Ruin Paradise was small, it had spread everywhere. The reason why the Spirit Ruin Paradise could be rebuilt after the Dark Upheaval was completely because of Wavering Light Lord Vivian. Back then, she also came from this small sect. This was another reason why the small inheritance was so legendary. The Spirit Ruin Paradise didn't have any great experts overseeing it, but the people who came out from here were extremely stunning. There were 2 Quasi-Emperor and 1 Celestial Emperor, shocking the world. Yi Fan and Pangbo didn't enter the Spirit Ruin Paradise because there was no one they knew. Generation after generation had passed away many years ago. Yi Fan came to the Wavering Light Holy Land. As soon as he stepped in, he alarmed Vivian. Now she was one of the most powerful people in this world. Celestial Emperor Yi Brother Pang. Vivian personally came out to greet them, which naturally shocked many people in the sect. How many people in this world could attract their patriarch like this? When they heard that the Celestial Emperor had come, they all trembled. Now the Wavering Light Holy Land was full of divine mountains. Auspicious energy was everywhere, clouds were rising, and it was like a precious land of immortals. It was especially flourishing. Vivian had a pair of celestial spiritual eyes, which were rumored to be able to see through the path of immortality. After they sat down, they naturally talked about this. She didn't hide it and said, "Unfortunately, the path of immortality will open again in 1,000,000 years. Otherwise, I could use my eyes to help Brother Yi. There is a case that I want to consult the Divine Lord about," Yi Fan said, mentioning an old matter. Vivian nodded. She tore open the void and a prison appeared. An old man with disheveled hair was imprisoned inside. It was the Great Sage. He received part of Emperor Hung Ho's inheritance and taught Wavering Light and Hua Yunfei. "He lives in our holy land," Vivian said, pointing out his identity. Vivian pointed out his identity. In the past he wasn't this powerful. He had only broken through slowly after the great changes in the world. Moreover, they weren't alone. It was just that those old antiques had long passed away, and now he was the only one left. Back then he lent Wavering Light's black gold patterned cauldron to the King of Eventide to kill Divine King Jiang in the Divine City of the Northern region. Vivian revealed the case. She was an extraordinary woman with superb methods and peerless talent. With her own strength, she plowed through the courtyard and swept through the acupoints, quelling the undercurrents in Wavering Light. She was in control of everything. When they were far away from the Wavering Light Holy Land, Pangbo said, "I believe that she has also studied Emperor Hung Ho's methods." "It doesn't matter if she has or not," Yi Fan said. He walked into the Supreme Mystery Gate. It had been rebuilt, and the mountain gate had long been destroyed. They went straight to the new humble peak. And what was surprising was that they saw elderly Ruoyu. Li Ruoyu often wandered outside and rarely came back. After they parted, Yi Fan had never seen him again. This was a pleasant surprise. "Greetings, Senior." Even as a Celestial Emperor, Yi Fan was still very respectful to him, because he had received a great favor from him back then. Li Ruoyu was only a few hundred years older than him, so he still had plenty of lifespan left. Their lineage was particular about accumulating strength and building an exceptionally solid foundation. And now, elderly Ruoyu was in the Quasi-Emperor realm. Although he had yet to reach the peak, no one dared to look down on him. They knew that he would reach the peak sooner or later. Ding dong! Far away on a mountain peak, the sound of a zither could be heard. 100 birds were paying homage to the phoenix, and pure white petals danced in the air. There was a man with hair as white as snow, and he looked otherworldly. He was playing a celestial tune. Hua Yunfei. Pang Bo's eyebrows twitched. Yi Fan shook his head. That was Hua Yunfei's younger brother. Although they looked the same, had the same name, and had the same hobbies, they were ultimately not the same person. Perhaps even the heavens felt sorry for that otherworldly man, so there was another similar flower blooming. After many years, he entered the Tao with the zither, and actually reached the great sage realm. Although his life was not glorious, his state of mind was peaceful, and he was very satisfied. Yi Fan sighed and stood up. He bid farewell to elderly Ruyu and left. The ruins of the Ji clan were still there, and some of their clansmen were still here. Yi Fan unexpectedly met Ji Biyue. Most of their clansmen did not return after moving away. They were on another ancient planet. In the southern domain, there were not many people from back then. Old Madman, Crow Taoist, Peacock King, Nangongzheng, and the others had long passed away. They were all buried in the passage of time. In the end, Yi Fan passed by the Xiaoyao school and saw the young expert who was second only to Hua Yunfei back then, Li Yuyu. However, she was already old and did not have much time left. Li Yuyu could only sigh at such a reunion. Who would have thought that Yi Fan would become the Celestial Emperor? Back then, she and Ji Biyue had chased after Yi Fan to kill him. Their goal was to become his cauldron. She knew that as the Celestial Emperor, Yi Fan would not care about those things anymore. However, it still made her feel disappointed and frustrated. An era is about to end. Are you sending us off? She sighed faintly. What else could she say? Yi Fan passed by the central region and saw the leader of the Feng clan, the Wind Phoenix. From afar, her hair was already as white as snow. When they met again, they could only nod in greeting. They both knew that this was probably the last time they would see each other. Time was heartless. The Feng clan could still be considered strong and prosperous. Under the leadership of the Wind Phoenix, these years could be considered glorious. However, when the people of the clan saw Yi Fan, they were incomparably respectful. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan was already standing in the northern domain. Chapter 1802. Yi Fan stood in the northern region. The land was scarlet, and he couldn't see his old friends. There were many people here that he couldn't forget. It was an unforgettable period of time. The ancient races rebelled. The purple mountain bell rang for 3 months. Ancestor Zhonglin's consciousness didn't fade even after 10,000 years. The ancient races that fought alongside him turned into specks of light that morning. The peerless divine King Yu Qi's zither music shook the surroundings. Blood dyed his white robes, his style peerless. There were too many people and too many things that were hard to let go of, and he couldn't forget. Yi Fan stood in the ruins. This was the place where ancestor Zhonglin died in battle. Now it had become a place of Tao transformation. Yang Yi, who had been sealed by Zhonglin for 10,000 years, came here before passing away. Her tears fell like rain as she turned into Tao light. She could dance with Zhonglin forever. Dying on the battlefield and being buried in blade light was the final destination of heroes. They gradually grew old, and their white hair melted into the mortal world. This was the helplessness of heroes. Now the 13 great bandits were all gone. There were only 2 minor bandits left, and they were both in the celestial court. It was difficult to find people who had passed by. Yi Fan's figure flashed and the void exploded. He temporarily separated from Pang Bo and Longma, and went to a small world by himself. This was the small world of the 4th great bandit, the Green Flood Dragon King. Now it had become a holy land of the demonic race. Unfortunately, even the Green Flood Dragon's son Qingyi had died. The former immortal palace had fallen a long time ago, because when the demonic race killed the ancient race creature sealed beneath the palace, they destroyed the entire palace. Yi Fan's figure flashed and appeared on a mountain peak. The pine trees rustled in the distance, but this place was very quiet. There was a solitary grave with the 2 words Qin Yao carved on it. After so many years, the grave was old but there was no grass growing. Someone was taking care of it. Unfortunately, even Qin Yao's good friend Jin Yan had passed away. Now there was no one who could ridicule or scold Yi Fan. Yi Fan sat in front of the grave. This was a good girl, but she had passed away too early. This made him sad. Jin Yin had once felt sorry for Qin Yao. She had teared up and said that she was just a passerby in Yi Fan's life. Yi Fan encountered many people in his life, but towards Qin Yao, he never forgot her. Only even though he was a heavenly emperor, sometimes he still felt desolate and powerless, some things difficult to do. I'm sorry, I didn't find the god's life flower. Yi Fan was dejected. He sat in front of the grave and spoke softly to her. In the past, he thought that he would be able to find the god's life flower after obtaining the inheritance of the Yuan Taoist master. However, after more than 6,000 years, he still hadn't found anything. It had been too long, more than 6,000 years. Even if there really was a god's life flower, it would be hard to defy the heavens. The more he knew, the more he understood, the more powerless he felt. The god life flower didn't even exist in this world. It only grew in the celestial world. In the past, including the 4th generation Yuan Taoist master, all those who searched for the god's life flower had never truly found it. Legend had it that they had misled the later generations. Mortal essence fruit, earthly fate fruit, heavenly deity fruit. These were divine treasures born from the stone. They were the products of the same divine item's evolution in 3 stages. The first 2 could be seen in the world, and the earthly fate fruit among them wouldn't be much inferior to the immortal medicine. As for the heavenly deity fruit, it had never been seen before because it only grew in the celestial world. It was said that when the earthly fate fruit evolved into a heavenly deity fruit, it would grow a kind of flower called the god's life flower. It could only be seen in the celestial world. But if he entered the celestial world, the immortal medicine's effects would increase by many times. Why would he need the god's life flower? A lonely grave buried an unforgettable person, as well as a period of feelings from his youth. Yi Fan muttered softly, talking about many things to the ancient grave. In the end he stood up and walked down the mountain. Yi Fan. Yen Ryu appeared. Princess. Yi Fan turned back and didn't leave immediately. He also had many things he wanted to ask, so he was very direct. I want to ask about Azure Emperor. He might be buried in the ancient desolate tower, passing away while trying to achieve longevity. Yen Ryu was as beautiful as before. These were just her speculations. This was naturally shocking news, but Yi Fan was very calm. At this realm, what else could make him pale? Even if Azure Emperor was right in front of him, he would still be the same. Yi Fan left and met up with Pang Bo and the others. The 10,000 ancient races had all left. Now the northern region was very cold and cheerless. Everything of the past could no longer return. The time in the Divine City left a deep impression on Yi Fan. Gambling on stones, the great battle of divine kings, and other matters seemed to have happened just yesterday. Now the Divine City had risen again. When he walked in, the entire world was boundless, but he didn't know a single person. Yi Tiandi! Someone exclaimed, trembling in fright. Now naturally his portrait was already in the hands of the various races. It was not surprising that someone recognized him. After the news spread, the eastern wasteland was shaken. Old friends who were still alive all rushed over. It was still the same city, and the same people were still there. Brother Yi, the prince of the Great Xia in the past, now the ruler of the Great Xia, was already very old. He no longer had the vigor of the past. Yi Fan smiled. It felt good to be able to see old friends, especially when he saw that the little nun from back then was also here. It was just that she had already returned to secular life and was already old. You two siblings have a deep relationship. Yi Fan smiled. I'm already old. It's really good to be able to meet again. Yao Yuekong also arrived. He was now the old master of the Sky Demon Palace. After that, Jiang Yifei, the head of the Jiang clan in the northern region, and his sister Jiang Kaixian also arrived. They all sighed in their hearts when they saw each other again after 6,500 years. Let's have a good reunion, Jiang Yifei said. He was full of vitality and had actually achieved the Tao in a different way. He was extremely powerful, definitely on the same level as the southern demon and Yi Tong. Brother Jiang, you are really outstanding, Yi Fan said. Jiang Yifei said, I know that Brother Yi has always been suspicious of me. Now that things have come to this, there is no need to hide anything. I have indeed obtained part of the inheritance of Emperor Ruthless Ho. When these words came out, everyone was shocked. Only Yi Fan sighed. In the past, he always felt that Hua Yunfei, Yao Guang, and Jiang Yifei's temperament was very special. They had a similar quality, and he used to have doubts. But now he no longer had doubts. As a Sky Emperor, he could see through everything at a glance. They secretly chose Yao Guang, and also came to the Jiang clan to choose disciples. In the end, I obtained the indestructible heaven art. But they were too ambitious, and in the end, the hidden cultivator of the Jiang clan was killed by the masters of my clan, Jiang Yifei said. Yi Fan suddenly understood. This might be the reason why the secret master of the Yaoguang Holy Land lent the black gold dragon pattern cauldron to kill Jiang Taishu. He had already become enemies with the Jiang clan. Not long after, the Jade Lake Saint, Daoyi Saint, and several other peerless beauties of the past came. Although they were very powerful, they were also affected by the wind and frost of time. Although they were still beautiful, their white hair had already taken root. More than 6,000 years have passed, and the divine fetus of the Jade Lake still hasn't been born, Pang Bo murmured. The Jade Lake Saint looked at Yi Fan and sighed. She said, with Brother Yi as a Sky Emperor, even the divine fetus doesn't want to face him, so it chose to live in the future. She used to be one of the most beautiful women in the Eastern Barren Territory, and now she had a large number of disciples, at least dozens of generations. When the purple clouds of the natural fetus of Taoism arrived, Longma couldn't help but let out a strange cry, but it was suppressed by Yi Fan. Longma was so anxious that he was sweating and couldn't move. He thought, Brother Black Emperor, I want to shout for you but I can't. During this time another person came, and to Yi Fan's surprise it was the Yin Ming Ai Li Dasheng, who had entered the absolute beginning forbidden zone together with him. Priest Duanda came to me several times and asked me to explore the underground tomb with him. He even gave me some divine marrow. I have to thank Priest Duan for being able to live until now. The song ended, and everyone dispersed. Yi Fan toasted everyone one last time, and stood up to bid farewell. Everyone sighed. They might not see each other again in this lifetime. Yi Fan walked in the divine city and murmured, You said that a similar flower would bloom 10,000 years later and reunite with me. Now more than 6,000 years have passed. Late at night, he wandered in the city alone and thought of a woman who had died many years ago. They met in this city back then. Unfortunately, Miaoyu Nunnery no longer existed. Not long after, Yi Fan's footprints were left in the northern plains. He wanted to find Wang Teng's master, the old crane. Unfortunately, it had passed away long ago, but it left behind an inheritance. Ancient Chaos Emperor had a successor. Yi Fan left behind a repaired monarch talisman, and imparted the secret word of for before leaving. He left the western desert, and entered the central plains. He saw the silence of Mount Meru, and the surging draconic energy of the central plains. In the western region of the central plains, Mount Qinling, he met a familiar person, a peerless genius from 15,000 years ago who had been sealed for 9,000 years. He was Central Sovereign Xiang Yufei. As expected, he was an extremely powerful genius. Yi Fan had heard that he had challenged the Golden Crow Emperor. The result was unknown, but it was expected that he had a glorious battle record. This was because he had been mentioned together with Gai Juyo. They were from the same era. Now Central Sovereign was very lonely. He stayed by a lake and built a hut. There was an indescribable sense of disappointment and frustration on his face. Yi Fan invited him to enter the celestial court, but Central Sovereign declined. I died once and was sealed for 9,000 years. I missed too much. The woman I loved died for me and threw herself into this lake. Now, I just want to stay here. Yi Fan recalled the past. When he had traveled with the sickly old man in Mount Qinling, he had seen Central Sovereign standing in front of this lake. Gai Juyo had told him about Central Sovereign's past. Two geniuses, two different paths but the same desolation. Yi Fan left and met Princess Yudai's descendant. At the same time, he learned that another famous princess Yu Ling in the Central Plains had passed away a year ago. Then he found an old friend Yi Huiling. Back when he had gone to the forbidden land of the ancient desolation to pick the immortal herb, she had helped him. Yi Huiling's vitality was still abundant because she had eaten the immortal herb. Even though it wasn't a complete fruit from the immortal tree, Seeing Yi Fan again, she was surprised and pleasantly surprised. What is this? She saw Yi Fan pass her a teardrop. This is a gift from little Nan Nan, Yi Fan said. She always forgets the past. Does she still remember me? Yi Huling sighed. Thank you for taking care of her back then. Even if she forgets those who treat her well, she will remember them again after a while. Yi Fan smiled. After parting, he met up with Pang Bo and Longma and entered the Central Plains Chishire Manor. Unfortunately, the old manor master had died many years ago. He repaired the formation altar that led to the outer realm, and went south, entering the southern mountains. The demon imperial palace was as glorious as before, but the southern demon siblings were nowhere to be seen. This was the last time they would meet. In the southern mountains, many barbarians had returned from the outer realm and lived here. Dongfang Ye's younger brother, Dongfang Man, became the chief because Dongfang Yi was stationed in the celestial court. Senior Black Tortoise, rest in peace. Yi Fan paid his respects in front of a large tomb. The Black Tortoise was the protector of the barbarians. During the Jade Lake meeting, he displayed his divine might and protected the human race. Then he paid his respects to the old barbarian king. That respectable old man had already passed away for thousands of years. It's you. Yi Fan unexpectedly saw an old friend in the southern mountains. She had white hair and a beautiful face. Time had dyed her hair white, but it didn't cover her appearance. It was Yao Shi. The Yao Guang saintess from back then was now living in the southern mountains. Yao Shi saw him and had a complicated expression. She recalled the entanglement of the past and finally scolded. What celestial emperor? He was just a shameless thief back then. After saying these words, she blushed and felt a bit regretful. So many years had passed, why bring up the past again? She chose to leave after learning that the Yao Guang sacred land was secretly controlled. Later on, Vivian plowed through the court and overthrew the old order. Yao Shi didn't go back and chose to live in seclusion. The past made Yi Fan embarrassed. Even as the celestial emperor, there were times when he was speechless. I invite you to the celestial court. Yi Fan didn't expect Yao Shi to agree. The only thing that made Yi Fan happy was that Pang Bo and Longma were still drinking in the barbarians, and didn't see this scene. Otherwise, the celestial emperor's illustrious reputation would be ruined by their words. In the end, they left and returned to the celestial court. Chapter 1803. In the starry sky, in front of the celestial court, 3 grand temples stood erect. The power of faith gathered, and propitious vapors rose. They were like great furnaces that controlled life and death in the world. This was a rare miracle in this world. The celestial emperor's investiture came true. His words were like 10,000 thunders that connected the sky and the earth, giving birth to the creation of the universe. At this time, there was a grand meeting in the celestial court. People sighed that the great era was coming to an end. Many people were getting old, so they gathered here to drink and reminisce about the past. Pure white immortal mist flowed. Divine orchids and jade grasses grew under the stairs. Divine birds and auspicious beasts came and went. The celestial palace was bustling with noise and excitement. Jade tables were placed one after another until they reached a far distance. Pang Bo was more than 3 meters tall, but he was still tall and sturdy. His bronze skin had a precious light. He was pulling Zhang Wenchang, Zhang Xiling, Dongfang Yi, and Ji Haoyue to drink and talk. Tu Fei was slurring his tongue as he pulled Li Heishui to talk about the past. They laughed and cried. Of the 5 bandits, only the 2 of them were left. Dare I ask for the fairy's name? It's a joyous occasion to meet a peerless beauty on such a beautiful day. Fairy, let me offer you a toast. Although Li Tian's hair was as white as snow, his heart was not old. He swayed his body as he approached Yao Shi. His eyes emitted a wicked light. Your wife is here. Beside him, Yan Yishi was still elegant as she reminded him in a low voice. Li Tian resolutely stood up and walked to the other side, leaving Yao Shi. However, he was still whining in a low voice. There's a lion roaring at home. It's retribution. Ha ha. The people around laughed. Little Kay rolled her eyes at them and pulled Yao Shi to the other side. There were Gu Lin, Gu Fei, Xia Jiuyo, who was no longer sad, and Tiny Tot, the lightning phoenix that Ji Ziyue had raised. Even Xiao Chao, who came from the Ziwei galaxy and had accompanied Darling when she was young, was relatively quiet. Grandpa Duan Kai Yushing, when are we going to do something big? Longma was drunk as he asked Duanda. One of the Black Emperor's large claws was placed on the shoulder of the heartless Taoist priest, hugging him, and said with a big tongue, "If there is an immortal treasure, don't hide it. If you attack again, it's time for us to withdraw." "AI, there's no time. I've been looking for a good place to bury myself. We'll meet again in the next life, provided that you're still alive." Duanda shook his head and sighed. He reeked of alcohol. At the side, Wang Shu and Lei Bo poured wine for the Black Emperor and the others. After so many years, the two Silver-Blood Emperors were already old, but they were still very respectful towards their master, the ferocious big black dog. Thinking back to the past, Dizun was young, not dead but still wearing diapers. I was the only one who was supreme. I pointed out the world and looked down on the world. As we chatted and laughed, how many tombs and ancient tombs were reduced to ashes? All of it was because of a single thought of mine. Who in the world is the hero? Look at my peerless beauty. Duanda was intoxicated. Time is like a butcher's knife. It whitens the hair of a hero and bends the waist of an emperor. I am unparalleled in the world. Motherfastris Kerr, I still haven't seen the innate saint physique Tao embryo. The Black Emperor complained drunkenly. A heavenly soldier came to report that Li Ruyu had arrived. Zhang Wenchang and the others were overjoyed, and they personally went to welcome him. Not long after, Bai Yi came looking for him. He was a youth who came from the battlefield of the first pass of the ancient road's 9 imperial passes. He wasn't suitable for cultivation in the early stages, but after receiving Yi Fan's encouragement and guidance, he persevered with great willpower and became an expert of a generation. Even though he wasn't Yi Fan's disciple, he had the friendship of a master and disciple. He sat together with Huahua, Yang Shi, Zhang Qingyang, and Long Yuxuan, drinking cup after cup of wine. It was quite a lively scene. Yi Tong and Jiang Tingting were also present. One had a great Yang physique, and the other had a great Yin physique. They had long become husband and wife, but even after so many years, they still didn't have any children. This left everyone feeling regretful. Everyone wanted to see just how heaven-defying their descendants' bloodline was. There were many people here, but unfortunately, quite a few people had passed away. For example, the 12 saints of the past had been replenished several times, and now, only the 9-tailed crocodile, golden-winged Peng, and Longma remained. Within the Grand Imperial Court, everyone toasted and exchanged cups, drinking and chatting merrily. There was laughter, and there were also tears. Their emotions were sincere. Yi Fan had asked everyone if they wished to live forever, but the replies were different. The most important thing in life is a peaceful and satisfied state of mind. This is enough. This emperor will die with everlasting regret if I don't see the innate saint physique Tao embryo. Honglong. In the distance, smoke and dust rushed into the heavens. One could vaguely sense imperial Tao laws spreading outwards, leaving everyone shocked. The heavenly palace had been flattened. The sacred prince sprang to his feet and muttered, "This naughty little thing." He knew who did it. At the same time, Pangbo also stood up and said angrily, "This little brat is really getting more and more outrageous." As expected, there were heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals reporting, and it was not different from what they had expected. The sacred prince's only son had come into the world again, running out from the divine source. While everyone was drinking, he and Pangbo's favorite descendant had once again created havoc in the heavenly palace, tearing down a few ancient palaces. The little monkey and Pangu had been sealed when they were very young. Even the sacred prince's immortal iron rod and Pangbo's demon emperor ruler had been sealed into the source along with them. It had to be said that the little monkey was too mischievous. Every time it woke up, it would sneak out from the source. It was very mischievous, running around everywhere, and was addicted to playing around. This made people not know whether to laugh or cry. It was clearly sealed in the divine source, but in the end, it came into the world again and again, running out every few decades to cause trouble. How did it look like it was sealed? It made people not know whether to laugh or cry. It was one thing for it to come into the world by itself, but it often called a few children, such as Pangu this time. Fortunately, Yi Fan was the current celestial emperor and could refine the divine source liquid at any time. Otherwise, he couldn't afford to waste it. Mom, save me. The little monkey was brought over by the sacred prince. Its large black eyes moved about, looking very sneaky. It howled miserably in the midst of its delicious food, asking for help. The six-eared macaque went up and gave him a series of slaps, spanking his buttocks. If you dare sneak out again, I'll beat your buttocks and directly seal you so that you won't wake up for 1,000,000 years. No, Mom, I was wrong. I only ran out because I missed you all. The little monkey cried out. Everyone smiled. The music ended and everyone dispersed. The heavenly imperial court became quiet, and only Yi Fan was left. He stood in front of the window, the moonlight sprinkling a layer of pure white radiance on him. Is this era really going to end? Up until now, he was the only one who was still rising. His blood energy was overflowing, and he was still becoming stronger. Meanwhile, the others who were still alive had either reached their old age or were starting to decline. Who could sing all the way in life? Yi Fan looked at the starry sky. Perhaps if they gathered again, there would be a lot fewer people. The golden era had reached its end, and the scene of the bright stars could no longer be seen. The geniuses of the past were all old, and many had even died from old injuries. After the extreme glory, the withering had already begun to appear. During this period, Yi Fan had gone to the ancient road once, and then he went to various places. Unfortunately, there weren't many of the experts who fought for supremacy on the ancient road left, and he only saw a few. Rui Wei ended his painful life. Feather Immortal and Tuoba Yu passed away in meditation for many years. Mu Guanghan and Ku Tuchuo's blood energy declined, and only Oyemo reached the quasi-emperor realm. 500 years later, Yi Fan unexpectedly met Yi Qinggu in the starry sky. They looked at each other without saying anything, and only after a long time did they laugh together, their enmity disappearing with a smile. In reality, at this point, there were no enemies in Yi Fan's heart, only old friends. And Yi Qinggu also finally let go of her worries. In the process of the passing of time, many things could be put down, and the future would be even wider. The years rose and fell, and when Yi Fan was over 8,000 years old, he was still unbelievably young. His skin was sparkling, and his hair was thick and black, no different from when he was 20 years old. When he was patrolling the lands, he saw Ditian, Shenlong, the human king, the great demonic god, and fairy Qingshi, but they were all old, and they were all disappointed and disappointed. The last cup of wine dissolved all the resentment of the past. Heaven Emperor is unrivaled, not only in terms of strength, but also in terms of mental state. All the enemies of the past have become old friends in his heart. I hope we can live longer and be with him. Ditian gazed at the sky and sighed to the stars and moon. The golden era had reached its end, and it was rare to see all kinds of geniuses. They were truly approaching the end. 10,000 years passed in a single sigh. How many geniuses and how many beauties were buried in the passage of time. However, at the end of this era, some geniuses suddenly reappeared in the world. Their sorrowful cries soared into the sky, and they wanted to carry out the last battle of their lives. Their radiance illuminated the entire universe. They were like comets that ignited the blue dome of heaven, and they were forever engraved in the history books. During this period, Tianda came, and he requested to fight one last battle with Yi Fan. Yi Fan calmly looked at him. This was a great enemy of the past, the first genius to display divine restrictions. He truly was old, his hair white, but the radiance in his eyes was just that great, like fiery light. He truly desired this, wishing to carry out the final battle against Yi Fan. All right. Yi Fan nodded and agreed to his request. There was no suspense in the result. No matter how heaven-defying Tianda was, he couldn't block a single attack from Heaven Emperor. The world was boundless, and it had already been several thousand years since Yi Fan could find an opponent. Yi Fan used his own blood energy to heal Tianda's Dao injury, and he turned to leave. More than 1,000 years later, Tianda passed away. During this period, there were other gods in Yan Chongtian who came to challenge him. They burned themselves in the flames, hoping to fight Heaven Emperor and die without regrets. One was the master of the divine race. He was tenacious and unyielding, and his magical power was matchless. The other was the genius Yi Fan encountered after he crossed the bitter sea of celestial being and reached the other shore of the gods. He was known as the second in the starry sky, and he had once eaten part of the essence of the ancient tree of life. However, he was injured by the great Tao, and now he reappeared. Yi Fan fulfilled their wishes, and he made the warriors walk on the road with clanging sounds. He made them sublimate in the flames, and they blossomed with brilliant smiles. Thousands of years passed in the blink of an eye. In the last years of this era, the grand scene of the stars shining once again appeared. One after another, heroes cried sorrowfully in the world, and they rushed to the sky. They released their brilliance under the starry sky, and they carried out their last unyielding struggle. Unfortunately, in the end, they were powerless to defy the heavens. No one could become an emperor, and the flowers of battle withered one after another. Who could sing all the way? The golden age finally came to an end, and it was about to come to an end. The unyielding Zhou Yi, the stunning Jiang Yifei, the peerlessly beautiful Jade Lake Saintess, the legendary innate Taoist fetus Xixia, and so on, all withered one after another, and the world could no longer see them. The unparalleled god Xiang Yufei finally passed away in front of Qinling Lake. He could sleep with the woman he loved, but he was also lonely. Before he passed away, he mentioned the name Gai Juyo, and he never moved again. The golden age had come to an end. Time was like a knife, and it cut down the proud sons of heaven. The whole world was silent, and Yi Fan looked at the sky alone. He did not say a word, and no one knew what he was feeling at this time. Chapter 1804. The world was vast and boundless, and he could no longer see anyone he was familiar with. He didn't even have a single enemy, let alone friends or relatives. Everyone of his generation had reached the end and passed away. The whole world was silent. Late at night, Yi Fan looked up at the starry sky and didn't move for an entire night. The heroes of this world had finally withered away, and he couldn't find anyone of his generation anymore. He sighed softly and got up amidst the morning glow. He left the celestial court and didn't return for many years. The celestial court was powerful and spread throughout the universe. Even though the great era had ended and the heroes of the sect had withered away, it was still the #1 sect in the universe. Yi Fan turned into a mortal and walked alone in the mortal world. He traveled from one place to another for many years, but even in the sea of people, he still felt a sense of loneliness. He had no friends or relatives, and even his enemies had all died. This was a terrifying silence. He was the celestial Varch, and his chi and blood were like the sea. He was extremely powerful, and the passage of time couldn't leave any traces on his body. However, he was so lonely and traveled alone, never wanting to stop. The mortal world was full of phenomena and life was full of different forms. He walked all over the world, but his heart was still the same, always silent. At 12,000 years old, Yi Fan grew his first white hair. When he looked back, even though he was in the sea of people, he felt that this world was even more silent. Although he was standing in the sea of people, he couldn't feel the aura of the mortal world. Instead, it was as if he had heard the call of another world. It was like the voice of the previous era, and he was incompatible with this world. So what if he was invincible? In this mortal world, he didn't know a single person. There were so many people, but they were so far away. Even if he walked to the end of the world, he would still be accompanied by an eternal loneliness. On the Huasong planet, an uneasy feeling spread. Everyone in the race was in a state of panic because the Golden Crow Thearch's chi and blood had withered away. The news had spread throughout the world. Yi Fan looked up and took a step forward. He arrived on this huge planet. Raging flames danced, and the Huasong trees were everywhere. Above them, there was a magnificent celestial palace floating in the air. The celestial Tharch had come to visit the Golden Crow Tharch. This shocked the experts of the other races. Then they felt some fear. They were afraid of his might and invincible aura. Yi Fan had never been close to the Golden Crow Tharch, but now he really hoped that the Golden Crow Tharch could live longer. In this withered world, even enemies seemed to be very close. It was really not easy to meet someone from the same era. Celestial Tharch, I'm really old. You're still so young. You're really worthy of respect. The old Golden Crow sighed. Yi Fan didn't say anything and just looked at him. Sigh, there's not much life left. Only now do I realize how good it is to be alive. Heaven sovereign, you have to cherish it. The old golden crow's golden hair had mostly turned white. Sitting on the fire crystal throne, he said, I finally understand why the primordial emperor chose to turn the forbidden zone into a forbidden zone. Even I have the urge to do so. If you do that, I'll kill you immediately, Yi Fan said. The golden crow Tharch smiled bitterly and said, I'm in the same era as you. How can I do that? However, I think you should be prepared. Even if you don't turn the forbidden zone into a forbidden zone, you should seal yourself or think of a way to slow down the consumption of your vitality. You really want me to seal myself, right? Yi Fan's eyes were as sharp as lightning. It was as if he could see through a Thearka's heart. The golden crow Tharch was instantly embarrassed and didn't say anything else. Yi Fan stared at him for a long time. For the first time in 2,000 years he smiled and said, I think you can still live for another 2,000 years. Celestial Tharch, you think too highly of me. I think I'll pass away in 500 years. The golden crow Tharch sighed. Is that so? I'll come and see you in 500 years. If you're still alive, I'll help you free yourself. Yi Fan laughed. Forget it. Life and death are decreed by fate. If I can endure for a while longer and be in the same era as the celestial Tharch, it's also an honor, the golden crow said. Yi Fan had seen the golden crow. After exchanging a few words with him, his loneliness lessened a little. He heaved a sigh of relief and ended his lonely journey and cultivation in the mortal world. Time. Yi Fan looked at the first strand of white hair that fell down. He circulated his mystic art, and his vitality rumbled. The world trembled, and the sound of thunder could be heard. His body glowed, and his entire body was translucent. The last strand of white hair turned from white to jet black. His strength and abundant lifespan were definitely unprecedented. It's time to go back. Yi Fan took a step forward, and the stars shifted. He instantly appeared in front of the celestial court. The 3 temples outside were still filled with auspicious aura, and the power of faith surged. They were flourishing for a long time. The only difference from the past was that the 3 grand temples had been changed to divine source. They could absorb the power of faith under the condition that the essence of the seal was not lost. This was what Yi Fan had done in the past. In each of the 3 ancient temples, there was a figure sitting cross-legged. They were the 3 gods conferred by the celestial Tharch. 2 of them were already surrounded by blood energy and accompanied by thunder. However, Yi Fan instead sighed. Condensing a true spirit after being sealed in a divine source, only having some results after so many years, it really was too difficult. The effect would be even weaker in the future. It was already a different era, and the deeds of the 3 heroes would gradually fade away. They would no longer be prominent in the world, and the faith would no longer flourish. Regarding this, the only way to ensure the immortality of the temples was to establish 3 religions again. Yi Fan silently returned to a courtyard in the celestial court, Undying Mountain. He hadn't returned for many years, but everyone in the celestial court knew that he was definitely alive because he was the celestial Tharch. A few decades later, a burst of weeping woke up Yi Fan from his deep isolation. He quickly disappeared from the Undying Mountain's cliff and arrived at the Peach Garden of Immortality. Under the ancient tree, a little girl was currently rubbing her big eyes and sobbing softly. She had just woken up from a deep sleep. She was as cute as a porcelain doll with sparkling and translucent tears hanging on her face. It was precisely little Nan Nan. For some reason, she was extremely fond of sleeping these past few thousand years. Sometimes, she would sleep for 1 or 2,000 years at a time. Yi Fan had once investigated and discovered that the ruthless great emperor under the desolate abyss seemed to be undergoing some kind of bizarre transformation that affected the little girl. Big brother, Nan Nan had a dream. In the dream, the other brothers and sisters were all gone, and only the 2 of us were left. At that time, Nan Nan felt very lonely and sad. Yi Fan sighed softly in his heart. The dream was very real. The whole world was silent, and only the 2 of them were left. He lovingly rubbed Nan Nan's head and said, "Don't think too much." The little girl's big eyes were filled with tears. She timidly grabbed onto the corner of Yi Fan's clothes and said, "Big brother, I'm very afraid. I'm afraid that one day, you will also leave me." Yi Fan was startled and said, "That won't happen. And big brother must remember, don't leave Nan Nan." The little girl was very obedient. She wiped away her tears and looked at him pitifully. Yi Fan nodded and promised her. The little girl had only woken up for a few months. She had always been like a little follower, and never left Yi Fan's side. She was afraid that he would disappear, and was full of dependence. During this period, Yi Fan brought her to roam around, making the little girl very happy. He was disappointed and frustrated, yet also sorrowful and moved. In this world, there was finally someone who could live with him and continue living together. After a few months, Nan Nan fell into a deep sleep again. Yi Fan looked at her again and felt that she would sleep even longer this time. Yi Fan sat cross-legged on the undying mountain's cliff. He refined some weapons and formation flags and scattered them everywhere in the celestial court. It immediately caused the celestial soldiers and celestial generals to be shocked and then burst into thunderous cheers. Celestial Emperor. And now, Dizun's celestial soldier's tablet and celestial general's tablet had all been found and became the secret treasures of the celestial court. In addition, Yi Fan also personally refined a few artifacts. Any one of them was enough to shake the world. Even if many of the founders were no longer around, the celestial court could still be passed on in glory for many years. In reality, as long as Celestial Emperor was still alive, even if the celestial court only had a few remnants left, it could still be said to be extremely glorious and invincible. Yi Fan set out again. He was using great magical force to deduce a person. Even though he didn't believe in the afterlife, the oath he made back then still rang by his ears. He promised that he would find her. In the afterlife, if you believe in it, then it will exist. If you don't believe in it, then it won't. The years are endless, and in the end, two identical flowers will appear in this world. After thousands of years, one will wither and the other will bloom. However, many years had passed, yet he couldn't find her at all. More than 10,000 years had already passed, yet she still couldn't be found. I have a premonition that I will meet that type of person. Could it be that the time has not come yet? Yi Fan was now the Celestial Emperor. His instincts and intuition were the most terrifying. He traveled through the starry skies. When he arrived at the starry ancient path again, he revealed a look of shock for the first time in several thousand years. It was because he saw someone from the same generation. Guancheng. At the city gate was an elder. He was extremely old, his body stooped, incredibly declining. "I pay my respects to Celestial Emperor." Yi Fan revealed a strange expression. More than 12,000 years had passed. The heavenly geniuses of the same generation had all died, yet this person actually survived. "I have an unmentionable disease, and should have died when I was 6,000 years old. I don't know why, but I lived a second life." Guanqing coughed. Now he was in his later years again. His realm had never increased, but he had lived much longer than others. There wasn't much time left. He came here again, revisiting an old place. He wanted to walk the ancient path again. Yi Fan grabbed his hand and carefully examined it. He sighed softly. It was indeed as he said. He lived a second life, and this time he was truly about to reach the end. There was also someone from the celestial court who lived a second life. After the little silkworm that had once followed the divine silkworm princess underwent 9 consecutive transformations, she started another life and was far stronger than Guancheng. She was sealed by Yi Fan together with the little sacred ape and divine child, the white-clothed divine king, the golden crow great emperor, the little silkworm, and Guancheng. It wasn't just one person. They all lived a second life. This moved Yi Fan greatly. A few hundred years later, Guancheng passed away and died of old age in the starry sky. Yi Fan came to the Huasong planet when he was 14,000 years old. This time, there was no need for the Golden Crow race to spread the news. Everyone knew that the demon Arch was about to pass away. This was because he could no longer control the Great Tao. It spread everywhere and shocked the human world. "You're here." The Golden Crow Great Emperor was very calm. "I'll send you on your last journey," Yi Fan said. Sigh. The old Golden Crow let out a long sigh. Dying with Yi Fan was the greatest sorrow of his life. "Do you have anything to say?" Yi Fan asked for his last words. Do you really want to hear it? The Golden Crow Great Emperor had been dignified his entire life and had suppressed his emotions. At this moment, there was a kind of self-mockery. I want to hear it, Yi Fan said. All right then. The Golden Crow Great Emperor nodded. Then his eyes suddenly brightened and became somewhat oppressive. It was as if he had become a different person. *CKU Celestial Varch. I finally won't be able to see you again. Yi Fan was stunned. These were his last words. The Golden Crow Great Emperor died very quickly. As soon as he finished speaking, his life came to an end, leaving behind a stunned Yi Fan. After a long time, he stroked his chin. The universe shook. A great emperor had died, and the entire world trembled. Time passed, and Yi Fan was already 18,000 years old. He finally entered his twilight years. It was rare to live for such a long life since ancient times. His hair had already turned white, but his blood qi wasn't too depleted. It was still astonishing. However, a strange thing happened on this day. A layer of golden hair grew on his body. Inauspicious. Yi Fan laughed loudly, but his eyes were extremely cold as he looked into the starry sky. With a flash of light, the golden hair on the surface of his body burned and disappeared. Another 1,000 years passed. Yi Fan was already 19,000 years old. Nothing unforeseen happened. As he didn't self-sever or use any means of longevity, he finally aged. However, his determination had never changed. He wanted to see through longevity. After a year of silence, he began to travel again. This time, he traveled for more than 1,000 years and traveled through the starry sky. He was already more than 20,000 years old. He suddenly looked up and found that he had already arrived at the Big Dipper. He was standing outside the Spirit Ruins Grotto Heaven in ruins. After standing still for a long time, Yi Fan suddenly turned his head. As a celestial Varch, this was the first time in the past 10,000 years that he had such a strange feeling after the entire world fell silent. The moment he turned around, he saw a figure walking away. The skinny figure was very erratic in the pitch-black night. It was a little strange. It was easy to imagine how terrifying it was for a celestial Varch like him to have such a feeling. Wait! Yi Fan shouted. He had caught a glimpse of this figure tens of thousands of years ago. Cough! The figure in the distance coughed violently, as if he was about to vomit his heart out. Chapter 1805. Yi Fan was the celestial Varch. Not only was he invincible, but there weren't many people who could compare to him in the past. His shout shook the 33 layers of heaven. His white hair scattered as he chased after him. However, that person was also very fast and didn't catch up immediately. They ascended into the sky and entered the sea of stars. This was definitely a Varch-level figure. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to have such unparalleled divine abilities. His cultivation was so high that it was rare since ancient times. The distance between them shortened. In the end, the old man returned to Big Dipper and stopped in the ruins outside the Spirit Ruin Grotto Heaven. Who is it? Yi Fan asked with a calm expression. Cough! The skinny figure coughed violently and slowly turned around. He sighed and sat on a crouching tiger stone. Yi Fan walked over and sat on a large stone. With his strength, even if the strongest people of ancient times came back to life, he would be able to face them calmly. Azure Varch? Yi Fan tried to ask. That's me. The skinny old man nodded. This wasn't his real body. It was a supreme primordial spirit that appeared in the mortal world. The simple question was very calm, but if it was spread out, it would definitely shock the world. The legendary Azure Varch was actually still in the mortal world, and hadn't died completely. He was different from what everyone knew. Fellow Taoist is indeed powerful. You single-handedly pacified the chaos, and swept through the forbidden areas. Your glorious achievements will shock the world, the skinny old man said while coughing. The predecessors paved the way and killed most of the rulers in the forbidden areas. My achievements are nothing. It's just a matter of time, Yi Fan said. Although he was surprised by the reappearance of the Azure Varch, he wasn't too surprised. After all, he was the only person to achieve the Tao in the past 100,000 years. It was too abnormal for him to die like that. In reality, in terms of lifespan, the Azure Varch shouldn't have died. I dismembered myself and put my primordial spirit into the ancient desolate tower. I didn't think that I would really send myself to death. The Azure Tharch sighed. At this time, he revealed his true appearance. He was a skinny old man with gray hair and a tall figure. His eyes were deep, and seemed to have seen through everything in the world. There were only two immortal artifacts left in this world. One was the immortal bell, and the other was the ancient desolate tower. The fact that the Azure Tharch could obtain one and use it showed how powerful he was. Why did you come out to see me? Do you have anything to tell me? Yi Fan asked calmly. Fellow Taoist, Azure Tharch said with a smile. As a celestial Tharch, what can I teach you? Celestial Tharch said. Yi Fan was speechless. This was naturally not the truth, because when he returned from outer space back then, he had seen Green Emperor's back figure here. I have come to say, the Fan said. Azure Emperor is Taoist, actually Fan, Taoist, Their, Azure Celestial to say to I said. Actually, I have come to thank you. If not for you, I might really be in danger. I might even die. The Azure Tharch sighed. He was not lying. His Tharch blood had once turned into a green lotus, which had been reborn in Yi Fan's body. Then it had left and awakened the Azure Tharch. It's nothing not worth mentioning, Yi Fan said. Their conversation was calm, but if it spread to the outside world, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. No one knew that there was still a Azure Tharch alive. One was a celestial Tharch, and the other was the strongest person in the past 100,000 years. If people saw the conversation between these two legendary Thearchs, they would definitely be shocked. This was even more shocking than the most glorious divine battle in history. This was a conversation between peerless experts. They did not say much, but it involved the great Tao longevity, and all sorts of other taboo topics. The Azure Tharch explained his Tao. Now perhaps only the ancient desolate tower, and the celestial bell, could contain his primordial spirit. This was far better than Huang Shudao's father, who had fused his body with the gilded phoenix wing centipede. The Azure Tharch suppressed the deities in the ancient desolate tower, and opened up a small deity domain there, wanting to evolve it into an immortal domain. He wanted to open up an immortal realm in the mortal world, where one could live forever. It had to be said that the Azure Tharch was stunning. He was truly too powerful. He wanted to evolve the immortal domain that the primordial emperor yearned for with his own strength. He did not ask for help from others or borrow the power of external forces. He wanted to create a true immortal domain that was shocking and heaven-defying. The two of them discussed the great Tao and the method of longevity in detail. It could be said that they were very agreeable. Their calm words contained supreme wisdom, and it felt like they understood each other. That is still a failed world. Although my life is flowing slowly in the ancient desolate tower, it is still being consumed day by day. One day, when I reappear in the mortal world, it will prove that this path is no longer possible. At that time, it will be my final struggle. After the Azure Tharch finished speaking, he stood up and bid farewell to Yi Fan. At the same time, he gave Yi Fan a meaningful look and said, "Fellow Taoist, take care." Yi Fan nodded and left, returning to the celestial court. He sat there for more than 1,000 years, and in the process he grew older. His blood and chi were getting weaker by the day. However, the enemy he was waiting for did not appear, and the flower that he was looking for was nowhere to be seen. Just like that, Yi Fan grew older day by day, and his blood and chi were getting weaker by the day. When he was 23,000 years old, he was truly past his prime, just like the setting sun. He was waiting for the inauspicious to happen, waiting for that enemy. However, after the golden hair appeared on his body and he sat cross-legged in the celestial court, there were no more unforeseen events. His white hair fell over his shoulders. The world was vast, and he could no longer see any of his old friends. Yi Fan appeared fatigued, and his face was filled with the marks of time. He stood alone in the familiar heavenly palace, but the seats of his old friends were empty, just like his heart empty. Report to the celestial Tharch. Outside the heavenly palace, a great sage transmitted his voice respectfully. That was Li Heishui's descendant of many generations. His cultivation was extraordinary, and he was now one of the giants of the celestial court. In this withered world, the Dharma Tao suppressed the quasi-emperor, and he could not be seen. The great sage was already a peerless combat power. It had been 10,000 years since anyone came to report to Yi Fan. That was because he had already ordered that unless it was a matter of life and death, no one was to disturb him. This heavenly palace was already covered in dust, and even spider webs were formed. "What's the matter?" Yi Fan asked. When he heard someone reply in the heavenly palace, Li Tianming was overjoyed, and even trembled with excitement. It had been more than 10,000 years since the last disciple had reported. The celestial Varch was already 23,000 years old, and he was actually still in this world. This was a miracle and a pleasant surprise. There had always been rumors in the outside world that the celestial Varch had passed away at 20,000 years old, and was no longer in this world. "Celestial Varch, the reason why I have disturbed you is that there is a letter for you here." Yi Fan raised his hand, and with a flash of multicolored light, the letter appeared in his hand. After opening it, his expression changed. It was actually a letter from Duanda. "Lad, your life is really long. You haven't passed away yet?" Yi Fan had a weird expression on his face when he heard this. "Don't look for it. I buried myself a long time ago. My primordial spirit dried up and died. It has been exactly 8,000 years. I set this letter with a spell formation in advance, and sent it out in the future." Yi Fan was moved. Although Duanda had buried himself a long time ago, according to what was written in the letter, wouldn't he live until he was about 15,000 years old before he truly died? The Emperor of the Underworld is really amazing. His methods are heaven-defying. Obviously, Duanda was extremely powerful, and his final result was no weaker than the Great Emperor. He was accumulating the reincarnation seals of the Supreme Honorable. There were already 4 seals in his body, and he didn't know how many reincarnations his corporeal body would need. "Don't look for me. I know you are far superior to the Yuan Taoist master, so I've long been on guard against you. Don't even think about robbing my tomb." After reading up to this point, the corner of Yi Fan's mouth twitched. "Nothing else. I just feel lonely after death, so I wanted to find you to talk about life and connect with feelings." Yi Fan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was really his unscrupulous style. "Don't thank me. Friends are friends, but I'm a person with principles. When I reappear in the world in my next life, I will definitely rob your tomb. Who told you to be the celestial Varch? I think I will definitely be very interested in your tomb at that time. Just thinking about it makes me excited. After hundreds of thousands of years, when I reappear, I will dig up the celestial Thearch's tomb. Since ancient times, who could do it? Apart from this poor Taoist, who else could? I will look down on the world, and only I am supreme." After reading up to this point, Yi Fan could only curse and say, "You bastard. I'll give you a piece of advice. Hide the tomb well, or else we can only reminisce about the past when the time comes." These were Duanda's concluding words. After that, the cosmos became peaceful. Yi Fan secluded himself on the undying mountain cliff for several thousand years. During this period, he only met little Nan Nan and didn't meet anyone else. He endured until he was 26,000 years old. His body withered and he lost all of his essence blood. He finally reached the end of his life, and the curtains were about to fall on this life. Where is that similar flower? Did I miss out on this life? Although Yi Fan didn't come out, the celestial court was always operating to search for that flower. However, it had never seen it. "Are you afraid? I'm already old and my blood energy is withered. Yet I still don't dare to show myself. Where's the so-called ominous?" He kept waiting, but there was no movement from beginning to end. At this time, the outside world was spreading rumors that the celestial Varch had passed away in meditation. A supreme expert of a generation had left the world. "You're quite cautious. 26,000 years old." Yi Fan couldn't hold on any longer. Multicolored light flickered in his palm, and then a purple qilin appeared. This was an undying immortal medicine fruit. Yi Fan opened his mouth and swallowed it. Then with a honglong sound, blood energy rushed into the heavens. It also spread in all directions, submerging all of Undying Mountain, shaking up the entire great cosmos. In the past, Yi Fan had eaten a 9-wonder medicine fruit, but it wasn't produced from a complete mother's body. Even when added together, it was only a portion of the perfect undying medicine. That was why it was still effective even now. 26,000 years later, the celestial arch was reborn. There was no need for anyone to spread the news. Everyone could feel his great Tao fluctuations, shaking up the world. All Tao bowed down, all of them crying out in grief. Too shocking. The path of the celestial arch has only just begun. The entire world was shocked, everyone stupefied. Yi Fan's first life ended. He lived for 26,000 years. Even if one didn't say that this was rare since ancient times, it wasn't too far off. Now that he was reborn, just how shocking of a matter was this? How many more years did he have to live for? No one could say for sure. Yi Fan released a sigh. He endured bitterly until now, always waiting for the inauspicious to happen, wishing to sweep through everything in his first life. He never expected that person to not come. Chapter 1806. Outside the celestial court, 3 majestic temples were constructed from divine sources. Their radiance illuminated the 9 heavens, and the power of faith rumbled like a flowing river. You shouldn't be like this. Dying on the battlefield, burying your bones in the blade light, ending up in the darkness is the best ending for me. A voice came from Gai Jiuyo's temple. Yi Fan faced it calmly, and after a careful look he sighed. That was just a remnant will condense from the power of faith, and not a real person. In the future, if Senior's spiritual consciousness truly awakens, I will respect your choice. Yi Fan turned around. The other 2 temples were surrounded by blood energy, and their life force was even stronger. One could vaguely see the pulse of 2 remnant bodies. Yi Fan did not disturb these 2, and still sealed them in the celestial source. How shocking was the rebirth of Celestial Emperor. He was immortal for 26,000 years, and if he continued to live like this, it would make people tremble. In various parts of the universe, the celestial court's divine might was even greater. The power of faith surged and entered Yi Fan's cauldron, turning it into a vast sea of stars. The entire celestial court was filled with a myriad of phenomena, and propitious chi broke through millions of miles. Looking from afar, the celestial palace was bathed in immortal radiance like a vast celestial world, becoming a land of eternal life. The phenomenon of the celestial court shook the mortal world. Everyone felt that it was inconceivable, and they were even more in awe. There were all kinds of phenomena, true dragons dancing, and immortal phoenixes spreading their wings. They were all formed from the power of faith, and they circled above the celestial court, becoming gods. Unbelievable, Celestial Emperor is too strong. With him, the celestial court has become the most powerful inheritance since the beginning of time. The white tiger roared, the black tortoise expanded the sea, and the Kuanpeng swept through the 9 heavens. They were all gods formed from the power of faith, and they guarded the celestial court. In this era, their foundation was too deep, and many people trembled. Could it be that this is the true meaning of the celestial court? To be immortal in the mortal world? The cauldron of origin chi was bobbing up and down, and the power of faith inside was boundless. Every living creature on the wall of the cauldron had materialized, and created all kinds of strange phenomena outside the celestial court. Even if Yi Fan passed away, with this cauldron, the celestial court would continue to prosper. Is the ultimate use of the power of faith related to longevity and the creation of a deity land? Is this the reason why the primeval emperors wanted to establish the celestial court? After this day, many people started to ponder. The celestial arch cauldron had already evolved to the extreme, and it only needed one last leap to become an immortal artifact. In the mortal world, many people revered the celestial court. As more and more people mentioned the name of the celestial emperor, the power of faith naturally increased. Yi Fan's body was sparkling and translucent. His black hair was thick, and he was full of vitality. He had recovered to his optimal state. At a glance, he looked like he was only around 20 years old. He was so young that it was hard to believe. A new beginning, a reincarnation of life. He stood at the beginning of another life. It was still the same world, but the people of the past were gone. Back then, when he first entered the Big Dipper, it was difficult for him to cultivate, and he was chased. Later, he met a group of companions. It was the time when he was young and frivolous. They moved forward bravely and were full of drive. Looking back, those companions and beauties were all gone. How could he spend this life as the celestial emperor? How could he go on the road of life with a group of young faces? The world was vast, and he could no longer find that feeling. But the previous life was over. Yi Fan had experienced too much. After sighing, he put away his loneliness because he still had a long way to go, and there were still some things he needed to do. He wanted to comprehend the method of longevity, and he wanted to fulfill the promise of the past. A modeled and vast battle map of longevity had been unfolded, waiting for him to depict the magnificent rivers and mountains and poems. This life no longer had the feeling of the past. Back then, he struggled bitterly and narrowly escaped death. On the road of cultivation, there were many tribulations every year. In this life, he meditated for 1,000 years in a blink of an eye. Yi Fan was thinking about all kinds of longevity methods, constantly attacking and verifying this path. The same amount of time, different ways of living. After a few times of seclusion, 5,000 years had passed in this world. This was the lonely path of the celestial emperor. He stood in the 9 heavens, looking down at the youths in the mortal world full of vigor. They were slightly immature, full of hope, charging into their own sky, but he could no longer integrate into it. The path of the predecessors is continued by the descendants. The celestial emperor sighed. 8,000 years had passed in this world. He was still young, and he was even more powerful. After waking up from seclusion, he looked at the mortal world. A group of youths walked the path of cultivation, became famous, and then turned to the yellow earth. This was this life, and it was also the reappearance of the era of Yi Fan. The times changed, and some things in the world were constantly repeating themselves. Like a mirror, it reflected light, shining into the eyes of the celestial emperor. Wisps of immortal light appeared in Yi Fan's eyes. Just like that, he sat in the 9 heavens, overlooking the mortal world. Several thousand years passed in a single sitting. It was as if he had grasped a certain path of longevity and reincarnation. Now that he was 15,000 years old, Yi Fan's black hair was still the same. On this day he sat on the cliff of Undying Mountain. A golden light flashed in the distance, quietly running into the immortal peach garden, causing him to reveal a strange expression. With a shio sound, a little golden monkey was captured by him with a single thought. It appeared in front of him, and it was precisely the sacred prince's only son. In this life, he broke through the divine origin and snuck out again. "Ye Uncle Yi, you are still so young. Could it be that only a few years have passed?" The little sacred ape only seemed to be a few years old. He scratched his head in confusion. "You are too mischievous. Why did you sneak out again?" Yi Fan asked. "I didn't go to pick immortal peaches, nor did I want to sneak out to play." The little monkey's attempt to hide something only made it more conspicuous. His large eyes rolled about, but after a moment he suddenly broke into tears and said, "Uncle Yi, I miss father and mother." Yi Fan carried him up and placed him on his shoulder. He brought him to the mortal world for a stroll. Not for anything else but to bring him to play to his heart's content. Many people were astonished when Celestial Emperor set out this time. They sighed inwardly that the little monkey was really too lucky to actually be able to sit on Celestial Emperor's shoulder. In this life, there was a mischievous little monkey that jumped out to cry to Yi Fan. This made him feel very warm, and as a result, he doted on him very much. Of course, in the end, Yi Fan sealed this little monkey again. This was the hope of the celestial court. His root bone was rarely seen since ancient times, and he possessed all the advantages of the great sage ape race. "Uncle Yi, can I come and play with you again after a period of time?" Before being sealed into the divine source, the little monkey asked timidly and hopefully. Yi Fan gave him a smack on the head and directly sealed him. Time flowed like water. In this life, Yi Fan witnessed the rise of several generations of heaven's prides in the mortal world. They became famous and they grew old. He had already lived in this world for over 20,000 years. In the remaining years he traversed the world, exploring the mountains, rivers, dragon veins, and places of heaven-defying fortune. It was as if he was searching for something. Celestial Emperor has a premonition that his time has come, and he has to find a burial cave for himself. People sighed softly. No matter how great a hero was, there would come a day when he would reach his end. Even though Yi Fan was Celestial Emperor, As long as he didn't sever his own blade, didn't create a forbidden area, and didn't seal himself with special methods, he would still grow old and die. But in this life, he had personally flattened the 5 great forbidden areas. How could he imitate him? People could foresee that Celestial Emperor, whose achievements shook the past and whose battle prowess could kill immortals, would die in the end. The curtains should fall in this life because the immortal medicine was useless to him. Time passed quickly. Yi Fan lived for another 26,000 years in this life. It was simply shocking. He had lived for over 50,000 years. Celestial Emperor is really a higher god. The whole world sighed. Yi Fan walked alone in the starry sea. The people of the world thought that he was searching for Celestial Emperor's tomb. But they didn't know what he was thinking at all. He actually wanted to find that monster. Yi Fan sighed. The other party was really good at enduring. Now his blood energy was withered, and this life was about to come to an end. His battle prowess was greatly reduced, and his situation was truly dangerous. In this year his blood energy was dried up. His white hair scattered behind him, and his body withered. He was a hero in his twilight years, and he wouldn't live for much longer. He traveled alone in the cosmos. Some people couldn't help but feel great sorrow when they saw this. Even Celestial Emperor was old, yet he couldn't be immortal. Celestial Emperor. Yi Fan passed by the various regions. It was as if he was bidding farewell to this cosmos, bidding farewell to the various races. Many people couldn't help but cry out in sorrow. Seeing such a powerful person fall like this, many experts felt terrible inside. Celestial Emperor grew old and died. This was the end of an era. Hong. Suddenly, a powerful aura erupted. A large foot descended from the sky, trampling towards the withered Yi Fan. What? Who is that? Who dares to be so disrespectful to Celestial Emperor, trampling on his head? A few of the saints who followed behind to see Celestial Emperor off all changed their expressions, becoming furious. Yi Fan quelled the darkness chaos in the past, sweeping through the life-restricted regions, leaving behind glorious achievements. He was revered by all races. So who could humiliate him like this? Trampling on Celestial Emperor's head, this truly made the saints of all races unable to restrain their anger. At the same time, golden hair, red hair, black hair, and other things grew densely on Yi Fan's body. The scene was extremely terrifying. The later years of the saint body, the declining years of Celestial Emperor. He has suffered the most terrifying curse. Celestial Emperor. Everyone cried out loudly. Everyone's hearts trembled, worried for him. All of them revealing expressions of sorrow and sorrow. They couldn't help him at all. The aura of the one who appeared was absolutely matchless. If not for Celestial Emperor standing in front of them, blocking the fluctuations, all of them would have died. Hong. An explosive sound rang out, shattering the heavens. Celestial Emperor, whose entire body was covered in hair, brandished the Emperor fist that he hadn't used for who knew how many tens of thousands of years. This strike made the past and present tremble. This strike reversed the long river of time. And this strike pierced through the 33 layers of heaven. Celestial Emperor was old and hadn't used weapons for many years. His blood energy had withered, but his fist was still unstoppable. The giant foot stomping down from the sky directly exploded, causing a rain of blood to pour down. Then with a boom, Yi Fan's entire body erupted in flames, burning all of his hair clean. He reappeared in his true body. Even though Celestial Emperor was old, he was still domineering and matchless. He was unrivaled in the world, and no one could bully him. Worthy of being Celestial Emperor. Your blood energy has withered, yet you still have such battle prowess. Truly admirable. However, you still have to die. A person descended from the sky. His entire body was covered in dense long hair. Then, another person descended. He was incomparably holy, as if he was formed from a divine source, resplendent and dazzling. There are 2 monsters? Yi Fan stared. I am an origin ghost. I am an origin god. The 2 of them announced their names, immediately evoking Yi Fan's distant memories. Back in the days of the northern divine city, he had heard many legends while gambling on stones and searching for sources. They were all related to origin ghosts and origin gods. They ate immortal treasures in stones. Are you guys the monsters? Even the two emperors aren't enough, Yi Fan said. Even though he was old, he was still incomparably domineering. He stepped forward, wanting to flatten the enemy. Wrong. The monster you are waiting for is me. They are only my kind. Another voice rang out. A heavenly netherworld treasure wrapped in immortal light tore through the great cosmos and appeared. A person surrounded in primal chaos light walked out from the netherworld artifact, his aura unrivaled. How could we be left out? After these words were spoken, the four people's blood energy shocked the ages. They arrived together, and an ancient mine was faintly discernible in the distance like a black hole. They came from the Origin Ancient Mine, a forbidden area that Yi Fan always wanted to flatten. With a wung sound, the killing formation diagram of the numinous treasure celestial being appeared, covering the sky. It was actually grasped by these four people, trapping Yi Fan below. Several ancient emperor weapons replaced the four killing swords, forming the number one killing formation since ancient times. What a great battle array! The 7 great supreme beings have all appeared in my later years. Yi Fan coldly looked at them. I only want a strand of his heart blood and a living celestial emperor's imprint. The rest of his flesh and celestial emperor's bones will all belong to you. The person wrapped in primal chaos light walked out from the heavenly netherworld treasure and said, "Evolve into a true immortal artifact." Yi Fan stared at the netherworld artifact and couldn't help but sigh. However, even though he was already in his later years and was trapped in an absolute formation, his divine might still suppress the universe. His voice spread throughout the 9 heavens and 10 earths. I am the Celestial Emperor. I will suppress and kill all enemies in this world. Chapter 1807. Celestial Emperor is indeed domineering. Do you think that you are the supreme ruler of the 9 heavens and 10 earths? Do you think that we should immediately kowtow and submit to you? The original god said coldly. Many years had passed, and Yi Fan had become old. His white hair draped over his shoulders, and the marks of time could be seen on his face. His blood energy was declining, and he was indeed not as good as before. Under such circumstances, the others were naturally unconvinced. Seeing Yi Fan's domineering attitude, they couldn't help but sneer. It's been more than 50,000 years. It's been a long time. I wonder if Celestial Emperor can still lift his cauldron? Yuan Ghost was even more direct. His face was cruel and merciless. Yi Fan coldly stared at him and didn't say anything. Warriors were invincible and didn't need to be berated. He had moved unhindered for 50,000 years and dominated the world. Who could compete with him? At this point he only needed to kill. This kind of gaze made the great emperors and ancient emperors tremble. Yuan Ghost felt a chill run down his spine when his gaze swept over him. What else do you have to fight against us? You only have the form of a tiger but no power. After today, there will be no more Celestial Emperor in this world. Only a pile of bloody bones. Someone from the Origin Ancient Mine said. Golden light shot up from his body and illuminated millions of miles. He was as resplendent as if he was cast from gold. Multicolored light pierced through the sun and moon, majestic and powerful. What flowed out was a rumbling golden blood energy. Yi Fan stared at him and said, I heard that before the Golden Ancient Emperor passed away, he created a forbidden secret technique, like the Golden Divine Treasure, which contained the comprehension of life and death. Now, it seems that the rumors were wrong. You are still in this world. This was the Golden Ancient Emperor. His weapon, the Golden Truncheon, was suspended on one of the gates of the number 1 killing formation. It was emitting a terrifying immortal light. Not far away, the Golden Truncheon trembled with a world-shaking murderous intent. A beam of cold divine light shot up with a chill that penetrated through the past and present. It was aimed at Yi Fan, using its actions to express its murderous intent. Yi Fan smiled, but it was a bit cold. I killed your daughter. The Golden Heavenly Maiden had been killed more than 50,000 years ago. Now that the past was brought up again, Yi Fan was calm and unperturbed. He just stared at the Ancient Emperor opposite him. The space between the Golden Ancient Emperor's brows trembled. And then he recovered his calm and said, It's just a daughter. In the mortal world, the universe is desolate. We cultivators sleep for millions of years. And this world is nothing more than a small chess game. What does familial love and bloodline count for? I hope you really have that kind of spirit, Yi Fan said coldly. At this moment, the heavenly underworld artifact shone, and the universe trembled. The surging light was like water, and millions of auspicious clouds rushed up. It was a precious wheel, completely jet black and sparkling. This was the supreme magical artifact of the Underworld Emperor in the past, but now, it had developed a spirit, breaking free from the control of the Underworld Emperor, and becoming a ruler on its own. Below it, the humanoid creature's entire body was curling with chaotic light. This was the painstaking effort of several generations of people in the underworld. They meticulously researched the method of longevity, and collected the true blood of 10,000 spirits to create such a monster. Its strength was heaven-defying, and now, it had fused with an immortal artifact. Its strength was already unfathomable. Celestial Emperor, I really don't know how else you can defy the heavens. Are you still going to play tricks like in the past to trap and kill us? The humanoid creature looked disdainfully, and his aura was powerful. He sneered and said, I know you are a heaven-warping talent, and you might be able to live a third life. However, that is only when you are about to pass away in meditation, and you can undergo nirvana. Right now you haven't reached that step yet. Their appearance was very particular. They had calculated that this was Celestial Emperor's true later years, and there was no deception. The ancient emperor had prepared for many years to prevent Yi Fan from dealing with them. Revenge was secondary. Seizing Celestial Emperor's imprint, and plucking the blood essence of a living Celestial Emperor was the real goal. In reality, what he said was the truth. Yi Fan's blood energy was dried up, and now, he was indeed past his prime. His stamina, spirit, and other aspects were far inferior to the past. In the past, I was still a small cultivator. I had to struggle my way through, and it was for the sake of survival that I set up all types of traps to deal with powerful enemies. Yi Fan said softly, as if he was feeling a bit emotional. Then his eyes suddenly burned with brilliance. Now that things have come to this, do I still need to set up traps? There is no need to scheme against you all. That is just a small trick, because I am the Celestial Emperor. His voice tore through the world, incomparably domineering. The great cosmos rumbled in response, spreading to all regions. Countless cultivators trembled when they heard this, their blood energy resonating in response. It was enough to say that he was the Celestial Emperor. This was Yi Fan's confidence. He stood proudly, looking down on the world. Even though his hair had long turned white like snow, he was still like a heavenly deity, overlooking the boundless earth with unmatched elegance. No one could stop this battle. Just like that, it erupted. Chi, chi. Murderous light erupted in tens of thousands of streaks. The four weapons released chaotic sword energy that poured down like mercury, spreading over. It was exceptionally sharp, making one feel intimidated. Yi Fan took action from within the formation. A fist smashed out, splitting heaven and earth apart. Even that spiritual treasure formation diagram began to sway. The four ancient emperor artifacts rumbling intensely. An enormous sound rang through the air. The hearts of all clans in the cosmos trembled. The underworld's heaven-reaching underworld artifact moved, releasing millions and millions of strands of multicolored light, covering heaven and earth as it descended. It arrived next to the formation diagram, adding Tao symbols. A type of sacrificial sound rang through the air, as if all of the creatures of several great eras were weeping and praying. It was extremely shocking. With a wong sound, a cauldron rushed out from above Yi Fan's head. It was covered in ancient ruins, but auspicious energy surged from the cauldron's opening. Immortal light overflowed into the heavens, primal chaos like a sea, all of it rushing out. Moreover, at this moment, large amounts of symbols appeared, as if it was a heavenly book, complex and profound. These were the formation patterns Celestial Emperor arranged in the cauldron, similarly shocking. With a honglong sound, it smashed through the four archaic emperor artifacts' encirclement, defying the heavens and attacking the formation diagram. It was simple and direct, incomparably domineering. This cauldron could attack and defend, attacking and defending in one. Now, it was known as the Celestial Emperor Cauldron. There were Tao marks personally carved by Yi Fan, its offensive power unmatched in the world. Dong. The spiritual treasure celestial beings killing formation diagram trembled, suffering an attack, about to deviate from its original position. The 4 ancient emperors outside were shaken. What kind of power was this? It was rumored that once this number 1 killing formation appeared, as long as there was an emperor realm expert in charge, even if a great emperor was trapped within, they would still be killed after a long time. However, right now, it had just begun, yet Yifan already shook this formation, using absolute strength to break out. How heaven-defying was this? Hongwang. The heaven-reaching underworld artifact trembled, releasing tens of thousands of streaks of light, all of them supporting the formation diagram, stabilizing its body, allowing it to continue suppressing and killing Celestial Emperor. Yifan roared, striking out with a palm. That was a humanoid figure, a type of great Tao, unrivaled. It rushed high into the sky, shaking the formation diagram until it deviated once again. Celestial Emperor. They cried out in alarm. The humanoid figure Yifan struck out was actually himself, turning into an unrivaled imprint, shaking past, present, and future. This part of the universe was about to collapse. Was this still someone in his later years? He was actually this powerful, making everyone's hearts jump, their souls tremble. He is indeed in his later years, but he is a bit ridiculously powerful. The humanoid figure in front of the underworld artifact said. Then he roared, his hands continuously forming imprints, displaying the most terrifying curse technique. Within the formation, a layer of dense hair immediately appeared on the surface of Yifan's body. It was incomparably terrifying, making one feel intimidated just from looking at it. The so-called curse was also a type of natural law and secret technique, just that it was even more mysterious and unconventional, difficult to detect. It was just like how divine bodies couldn't achieve the Tao. It was because the natural laws of the universe were too powerful, targeting and suppressing them, making it difficult for them to break through, preventing them from going far. Not even the world can restrict me. What can a trifling man-made monster do to me? Yifan said coldly. Within his body, the sound of scriptures sounded. Symbols filled the sky, surrounding him. Every single character seemed to be cast from divine gold, possessing a sense of reality. They were divine and brilliant, suppressing all directions. This was Celestial Emperor's scriptures, matchless and unmatched. As soon as it appeared, all of the curse power was severed, moreover making that type of natural law burn, sweeping back in reverse, rushing towards the monster that was releasing chaotic light. Even though Yifan was old and had reached his declining years, no longer in his prime, every single strike was world-shaking, making even the archaic emperors feel horrified. They inwardly shivered, sighing that the opponent was truly worthy of being a celestial emperor. All life source energy collided with the formation diagram, making it tremble. Yifan's body was like a great furnace, absorbing the light released by the 4 ancient emperor artifacts that were suppressing the 4 formation gates, turning them into his own. His body burned fiercely, not showing any signs of exhaustion. He rushed upwards, using his body to strike the formation diagram. With a wonglong sound, this part of the universe collapsed. Yifan smashed apart the formation diagram, a fist smashing into the underworld's heaven-reaching immortal treasure, sending it flying. He took a step out. At this moment, he was incomparably dignified. His white hair fluttered about, as if he was a heavenly deity, overlooking everyone. The universe split apart, heaven and earth quickly quieted down. The 7 great supreme beings were all stupefied. What kind of power was this? The number 1 killing formation from past to present was broken so quickly. One had to understand that there were several great ancient emperors who personally activated it. I am the Celestial Emperor. I will suppress and kill all enemies in this world. It was still this line rumbling, the 9 heavens 10 earths all trembling. However, when everyone heard it, the feeling was greatly different, indescribable fear. Celestial Emperor, a title that made one feel reverence. At this moment, it was truly displayed. He was unmatched throughout the ages after all. Kill. Someone shouted loudly, calling everyone over to surround and attack Yifan together. They didn't believe that Yifan could hold on for much longer after his old body declined, and his blood energy dried up. Yuan Ghost's entire body was covered in blood-colored long hair, sinister and terrifying like a malicious spirit. He was the first to rush over, and the others weren't much slower either. 7 great experts attacked together. Honglong. Yi Fan displayed his irregular phenomenon. At the same time, Celestial Emperor scriptures appeared. The Emperor character shocked the world, surrounding the surroundings like an immortal realm. He reigned supreme within, impervious to all methods. Then he smashed out a fist. This was the true Celestial Emperor fist, only targeting Yuan Ghost. With a pu sound, bloody radiance splashed out 30,000 feet. Yuan Ghost's palm exploded, and then his entire arm broke apart inch by inch. Then, half of his body became tattered, a rain of blood pouring down. Ah! He cried out miserably. For an Emperor Dao expert to end up like this, one could well imagine what kind of pain he was enduring. The Emperor character flickered, rumbling, as if streaks of heaven-opening divine thunder were rumbling, extending forward. Yuan Ghost's tattered body continued to deteriorate. He was locked down and suppressed by the Celestial Emperor Great Dao. Hong. In the end, a loud noise sounded. He immediately exploded, and then raged with flames. Even his primordial spirit turned into ashes. This scene left everyone stupefied. It was too domineering, powerful to an incomparable degree. A celestial emperor couldn't be matched. With a honglong sound, Yi Fan turned his hand and slapped outwards, slaughtering his way into the crowd. He was like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, unstoppable, continuously blasting 4 or 5 individuals until they coughed out blood. Then, his left hand was like a golden immortal steel, covered densely in symbols and interweaving with divine light. It smashed down, blasting an ancient emperor into a bloody paste with a pu sound, his primordial spirit turning into dust. This was simply a legend, completely unstoppable under the joint attacks of supreme beings. Impossible. His blood energy has already dried up, yet he broke through the #1 killing formation since ancient times. And he is still this powerful. How did he do this? An ancient emperor's expression became ugly. What does this count as? If an emperor could do it, then I naturally can as well, Yi Fan calmly said. It was rumored that an emperor could break through this exceptional killing formation with his own strength. Now Yi Fan brought up the past again, making everyone's expressions change. This was the first time they felt that they were in danger. This was someone who was on par with an emperor. Someone who couldn't be bullied even if he grew old, no one able to match him. Chapter 1808. The 5 supreme beings fought with everything they had, all igniting their essence blood. A world-splitting aura appeared, the universe about to evolve anew. They charged over with everything they had. Today there was no way out. Emperor Dao laws interweaved in this place. With a honglong sound, an emperor magical artifact was shattered by Yi Fan. Divine gold fragments blossomed like fireworks, rushing in all directions. Flowers of blood blossomed one after another. The emperor artifact fragments cut through the bodies of several people, making their hearts sink. Yi Fan was too powerful, truly undefeatable. Everyone, do not hesitate. Today we can only fight to the death, sever the celestial emperor's fate, and harvest his essence blood. That is a supreme treasure of the mortal world. Taking the celestial emperor great medicine, might be able to prolong his life for half a lifetime. The monster shrouded in chaotic light spoke. He already activated the supreme immortal treasure. This sparkling black underworld artifact was like a precious wheel. At this moment, it slowly rotated, the scene of the underworld appearing, suppressing towards Yi Fan. Tens of thousands of great Dao symbols appeared. This star domain was like a swamp, stopping the celestial emperor's footsteps. Moreover, all types of Dao symbols flickered, their power peerless, able to injure the great emperor's body. Pop! Suddenly, light sounds rang out. Yi Fan had already stopped, his expression solemn. He continuously formed seals, and then began to shake his finger. A terrifying aura appeared between heaven and earth. Great Dao flowers bloomed one after another, formed from the celestial emperor's scriptures. They were sparkling, dancing about in the sky, rushing towards the supreme immortal treasure. Kill! At the same time, Yi Fan fiercely attacked. A streak of blazing light flew out from the tip of his finger, turning into an especially resplendent immortal puppet. It tore apart the universe, its power boundless. This was the celestial emperor's finger. With a shake like this, all things would be destroyed, no one able to stop it. Pooh! The immortal puppet smashed an emperor's weapon, and then it bloomed in the void. Multicolored light rushed into the heavens between the sparkling petals, all of them smashing into that person's body. Bloody light splashed everywhere. That person, regardless of whether it was his limbs, chest, or the space between his brows, they were all pierced through, leaving behind several finger holes. Then they loudly exploded, dying under the celestial emperor's finger. The sky was filled with great Tao flowers continuously blooming. The aura was powerful, making the heavens and tens of thousands of realms tremble. Then they all attacked that supreme immortal treasure. Dang! The shiny, black dark artifact trembled as it suffered a series of heavy blows. Although it resisted fiercely, it was still sent flying in the end. The might of a heavenly emperor was clearly evident. Everyone felt their blood run cold. In their respective eras, they were all unmatched under the heavens. Now that true emperors were gathered, they immediately saw the disparity between them. Boom! The monster that was surrounded by the light of primal chaos rushed over with the wheel of underworld artifact in its hand. It collided with Yi Fan's fist and exploded with light that rushed into the heavens. Yi Fan was as unmoving as a mountain. Meanwhile, he staggered backwards and coughed out blood. This was the only supreme being who didn't die after clashing head-on with Yi Fan. The dark artifact is very good. When it heard Yi Fan's evaluation, blood sprayed from the monster's mouth, and it was extremely furious. Yi Fan didn't take it seriously at all. This was a form of contempt and disregard. And it only cared about an extraordinary immortal treasure. Boom! Golden light flickered about. The skies were filled with weapons and secret treasures. Golden pagodas, divine swords, Tao bells, golden cauldrons, and all types of precious weapons danced about, all of them rushing towards Yi Fan. The golden ancient emperor took action. This was precisely his world-shaking forbidden secret technique. Golden divine treasury. When the true creator used this technique, it was incomparable, far exceeding those of later generations. It displayed the profound mysteries and might it should have. Yi Fan didn't move at all when faced with these things. Only the cauldron above his head flew out, and 10,000 spirits appeared to resist the endless golden weapons, resisting intensely. Meanwhile, that cauldron was like a cloud, dreamy and illusory as it rushed to the very front, directly smashing into the golden ancient emperor. The golden ancient emperor was shocked. He couldn't evade it, surrounded by this cauldron and completely locked onto him. He could only face it head-on. With a dang sound, his arms felt as if they were broken, and he staggered backwards. Meanwhile, Yi Fan arrived like a ghost, forcefully slapping his own cauldron, smashing it forward. With a pew sound, bloody light surged. The golden ancient emperor was smashed into a bloody paste by the cauldron, his primordial spirit scattering. It was just a cauldron and a palm, yet they broke through all techniques. It was simple and direct, violent and terrifying. No matter how many changes the golden ancient emperor had, it was still smashed apart by this cauldron and palm. Want to escape? Who can? Yi Fan took a step forward. It seemed slow, but a single step covered half the sky. Heaven and earth wailed and all Tao bowed down as he caught up to the original god. His right leg spun, sweeping over. No matter how fiercely the original god resisted, it wasn't a match. A moment later, with a pu sound, it was trampled into the starry sky by celestial emperor's foot. It was smashed into pieces, dying a violent death. The battle scene here was transmitted into the distance along with the flowing light fragments. It was seen by the sages behind Yi Fan, and they were indescribably shaken. The universe was shaken. What kind of mighty power was this? Celestial Emperor's divine might was matchless, and it was actually so easy for him to kill supreme beings. He stood at the peak of humanity, lonely and unrivaled, reaching great heights. When Yi Fan turned around, there were only 2 people left. They never expected this kind of result. Now it was already too late for regrets. They couldn't escape even if they wanted to, because they were locked onto by Celestial Emperor. They could only fight. However, so what if they were powerful? Before Yi Fan, they could only tremble. The difference between them was just too great. I understand. He forcefully increased his blood energy, reproducing his peak level strength. After this battle, he will undoubtedly die. He will exhaust the last of his essence blood. We have to persevere. The monster cried out. Kill. Origin Ancient Mind's last ancient emperor activated the great Tao natural laws, releasing the final attack of his life. It was powerful to the extreme, shocking the human realm. That was a sword dazzling and dazzling. A rain of light filled the sky, making even the stars in the heavens burn. Even the heavenly immortal treasures trembled, making the monster cry out and retreat. This person used an incarnation and the weapon's deity as a guide, igniting Tao transformation force, wishing to use this to kill Yi Fan. It was the most terrifying. Once an Emperor Tao-level expert's Tao transformation force appeared, everyone would have to back up, difficult to neutralize. However, Yi Fan remained just that calm. He opened his large hand, symbols endless. His golden palm and fingers were like clouds that descended from the heavens, covered in Tao traces. He immediately grabbed that weapon, incarnation, and this ancient emperor's true body within. The entire stellar sea was within his palm, terrifying to the extreme. With a pu sound, endless stars were extinguished. Of course, this included this ancient emperor, his weapon and incarnation, turning into scattered ashes, completely destroyed. The monster was correct. When Yi Fan reached his later years, he could only forcefully increase his essence blood, reproducing his peak strength, and only then could he kill everyone so easily. Despite this being the case, perhaps only a few emperors and a few others could do this. Then, without any suspense, Yi Fan captured this monster alive, studied it thoroughly, and then slapped it to death with a single palm. It turned into a bloody mist, unable to gather again. The immortal treasure heavenly netherworld artifact wanted to fly away, but it was immediately caught by him. As for the spiritual treasure celestial beings killing formation diagram, it had long since been put into the cauldron, unable to escape. The bloody mist pervaded the air. The 7 ancient emperors had all been killed, shocking the mortal world. Celestial Emperor. The sages spread the news everywhere. At this moment, all the experts in the universe were shouting the 2 words, Celestial Emperor. Although it was only 2 words, it was enough to express everything. Celestial Emperor was invincible, the supreme of the 9 heavens and 10 earths. For the people of the world, this was a legend. Celestial Emperor was already old, yet he had killed 7 ancient emperors in a single day. This was unprecedented since ancient times. In terms of glorious battle achievements, no one can compare. The people were shocked and amazed. At this moment, all parts of the universe were in an uproar. Yi Fan sat cross-legged in silence. No one approached, and no one disturbed him. He was refining the bloody mist left behind by the Supreme Being, but the effects weren't great. His realm was too high, and Celestial Emperor's blood surpassed everything else. The dried-up imperial blood couldn't truly nourish him effectively. It had existed for too long and lacked vitality. However, it was better than nothing. Yi Fan was cultivating here. Just as the enemy had guessed, he had transferred all the essence blood in his body. After the battle, his blood energy would dry up. However, he didn't die after the battle as the enemy had expected. It was just that his situation wasn't good, and he had already reached the final years of his life. The third life. Yi Fan closed his eyes. He was concentrating on transferring his vitality, hoping to take that step in the final moments of his life. The path of longevity was extremely difficult. This was the most crucial step in his deductions. If he failed, it would prove that he had been wrong from start to finish. If he succeeded, the future could be looked forward to. At this moment, Yi Fan was very tired. After all, he had just experienced a great battle, and his blood energy had been exhausted. However, he also released a sigh of relief. The final life-restricted region had been flattened, and the source of disaster in the underworld had also been killed. There wouldn't be any unrest in the world for a long time. However, it was precisely at this most exhausted and relaxed moment that Yi Fan's fine hair suddenly stood on end. He did his best to shift horizontally, immediately evading several star domains. He was fast to the extreme. However, A large amount of blood still erupted from his body. A five-colored heavenly blade hacked over, almost cleaving Yi Fan in half. It was just a bit off. His left shoulder and part of his body were cleaved apart, falling off. Celestial Emperor's blood gushed out. After so many tens of thousands of years, even when he fought against the seven venerables in his old age, he didn't shed a single drop of blood. However, now he was almost hacked to death. Even though he was tired in his later years and had just experienced a great battle, it was still enough to prove how terrifying the one who came was. That was a hand that was as warm as jade. It descended from the 9 heavens, holding a 5-colored heavenly blade. Just now it released a fatal attack. Celestial Emperor had an enemy. This was definitely a matchless expert. Through that blade, his identity was on the verge of being revealed. Honglong. At the same time, a waterfall descended from the void. A rain of light danced about, divine multicolored light filling the sky. It was as if immortals descended into this world, but also as if many people sprouted wings and ascended. It was just too magnificent. Yi Fan's vitality was greatly injured, and he was even ambushed by this blade. The consequences were extremely serious. His blood essence was damaged. Even if he had unmatched methods, he still had to admit that he was no longer at his peak. He already reconstructed his body, and he immediately recognized that waterfall. It was actually no different from the legendary Flying Immortal Waterfall. Reincarnation Lake, Soul Pool, Flying Immortal Waterfall. These were the 3 types of wondrous substances left behind by ancient supreme beings in pursuit of immortality. Among them, the Flying Immortal Waterfall was the most mysterious. It was rumored that it was a type of substance left behind by all supreme beings who fought their way into immortal domain. It converged into an immortal waterfall that connected to immortal domain's great gates. On top of this flying immortal waterfall, 4 figures appeared in succession. They quickly threw themselves over, ruthlessly attacking Yi Fan. At the same time, loud dong-dong noises sounded from the 9 heavens above. The sparkling palm that held the 5-colored heavenly blade trembled fiercely, as if it wanted to rush over from another realm through the flying immortal waterfall. However, he was too powerful. He was restricted to that side, unable to struggle free. Those 4 figures rushed over, fiercely attacking Yi Fan, buying him more time. Undying Heavenly Emperor. You are trapped between the immortal realm and the human realm. Yi Fan said coldly. He knew that he encountered great trouble. Through that blade just now, he understood how terrifying the other party was. Even if he was unharmed and at his peak cultivation realm, there would still be a life and death battle. However, the other party didn't seem to be able to cross over. It was just like how during the darkness chaos back then, Great Emperor Wuxia was stopped behind that gate, unable to cross over even if he wanted to participate in the battle. The more powerful one was, the more restrictions they would face. That sparkling white palm brandished the heavenly blade, hacking at Yi Fan. The Heavenly Emperor attacked the Heavenly Emperor. A peak confrontation thus unfolded, a battle that crossed realms. Chapter 1809. That streak of blade radiance tore through the tranquility of the ancient times, reproducing the true meaning of the creation of heaven and earth. It was as if a demonic god was reviving, awakening from primal chaos, domineering and matchless. This stunning blade exceeded the understanding of the world, incomparable, shaking the cosmos for endless ages. It was unstoppable, in the hands of the Heavenly Emperor. Even if it wasn't an immortal artifact, it would still be an immortal. Even if the archaic emperors and great emperors from generation to generation were here, they would still tremble. It was too sharp and domineering, shocking the world, difficult to contend against. Yi Fan's hands formed imprints, releasing great Tao force. Symbols appeared one after another, linking up the past and present, as if they pierced through the immortal realm, carrying with it an indescribable Tao force. After forming an imprint, he slapped it out. All of the symbols merged, erupting with immortal light. The Heavenly Emperor suppressed and killed the unmatched Tao force that belonged to his master. The symbols suppressed endless ages. With a dang sound, it smashed into the 5-colored immortal blade, producing a power that could make the great cosmos collapse. The great Tao flower blossomed. Dazzling radiance burned intensely between the two. Scripture sounds rang out, becoming eternal. The Heavenly Emperor confronted the Heavenly Emperor. This was enough to shock endless ages. Who would have thought that after being separated for endless ages, these two giants would encounter each other, producing this type of great collision? The heavenly blade weaved about, hacking apart the cosmos, recreating the ancient great wastelands. These were fragments of time. The one on the other side of the flying immortal waterfall was extremely powerful, suppressing past and present, as if he was reversing the long river of time. Dang! The all-life energy cauldron rushed up, colliding with the heavenly blade. 10,000 spirits appeared, all of them penetrating the wall, rushing into the 9 heavens, suppressing the 5-colored immortal blade, erupting with dazzling radiance. This was a great battle that transcended time and space, a clash of the most powerful sounds. Heavenly prides of different eras, known as the Heavenly Emperor and Heavenly Emperor, carried out a life-and-death struggle. The only regretful thing was that it was difficult for one of his true bodies to come over, only his right arm appearing, brandishing the undying heavenly blade, unleashing a great slaughter in this cosmos. Meanwhile, the other was old, about to pass away in meditation. His chi and blood were seriously lacking, unable to fight with all of his strength. The owner of the 5-colored immortal blade had incomparable glory and honor in the ancient past. Before he achieved the Tao, he dared to attack and kill an emperor, his boldness and insight evident. Later on, he achieved the Tao, becoming the Heavenly Emperor. How could this title be randomly used? It was truly because he was just too powerful. Later on, his cultivation flourished day by day, surpassing all past and present, ruling over the 9 heavens 10 earths. He was revered as a supreme deity by all races, wishing to compete with true immortals. The immortal Heavenly Emperor stepped on his own path. He could kill immortals and suppress demons. After he reached the consummate level, he was close to becoming the #1 expert since ancient times. He could stand shoulder to shoulder with a venerable emperor. Now he reappeared, fighting a great battle against a heavenly emperor. How could this possibly be described? It was just too shocking, enough to shake up endless time and make the entire 33 heavens tremble. 2 hours passed, and the two were still evenly matched. Even though the Sky Emperor on the other side of the flying immortal waterfall only had one arm stretched out, holding the 5-colored immortal blade, he seemed to be able to see everything on this side. He erupted with an unrivaled aura that was incomparable. Meanwhile, Yi Fan was about to pass away in meditation, about to live a third life. Yet this type of unforeseen event actually happened. This was simply a gargantuan disaster, extremely disadvantageous. However, as a heavenly emperor, his achievements were still unmatched, stopping the great enemy. The heavenly emperor's bloody battle was boiling. This battle shocked the entire world, destined to leave behind the most glorious stroke in the history of divine battles. The heavenly emperor's withered body fought against the Sky Emperor, who couldn't truly descend. It was intense and bitter to the point where even one's soul was trembling. Celestial court, within an underground cemetery. Divine multicolored light flickered about. The immortal source released an undying aura. There was a bashful and pure youth seated within. At his side, a divine lamp flickered, waking him up. Master! Komatsu's heart was pounding. He woke up from his slumber, and saw that his master's soul lamp was about to go out. With a kacha sound, he tore open the immortal source and rushed into the sky, entering the boundless cosmos. The battle between the Heavenly Emperor and the Sky Emperor continued for more than 2 hours. It was a confrontation at the peak, the battle prowess shocking past and present. When this battle ended, one could only see a warm and sparkling palm enter the flying immortal waterfall, moreover bringing away his weapon, the undying heavenly blade. The 5-colored immortal blade was dyed in blood, some of it heavenly emperors, unknown if there was also the Sky Emperors. It flowed with terrifying radiance, and from this day forth, it disappeared from the human realm. The next time they met, it was destined to become an immortal artifact. It was because it returned to its master's side, about to undergo rebirth and sublimation. The flying immortal waterfall still hadn't retreated, still there, crossing between the 2 realms. The other shore wasn't the immortal realm, but rather a strange space-time, trapping matchless experts. They couldn't advance or retreat, unable to enter the immortal realm, unable to descend into the human world. The four great experts rushed towards Yi Fan from the flying immortal waterfall, wishing to kill him. Just now, they couldn't participate in the battle between the Sky Emperor and Heavenly Emperor. Now they took action with full force, because the Sky Emperor's blood energy was about to dry up, unable to support a long battle. Yi Fan's white hair scattered down his shoulders. After the battle he sat there, covered in blood, recovering from his injuries. The first ambush left him with too heavy of an injury. Even though he avoided his head and wasn't hacked apart, the Sky Emperor's blade energy still entered his body, seriously injuring him. After the battle, his blood energy was almost completely dried up, not even enough to treat his injuries. This type of battle was suitable for him when he was at his peak, but being disturbed at the crucial moment of opening the third world was too fatal. The four great experts didn't give him a chance, slaughtering their way over at the same time, wishing to kill him with force. At the very least, they wanted to drag him to death. Swoosh. Yi Fan opened his eyes, intimidating and intimidating. A tiger wouldn't fall even if it died, shocking everyone. A small golden figure rushed out from between his brows. Even though it was much weaker, its great roar still shocked the world. With a pu sound, the little figure carried the all-life energy cauldron, transcending the restrictions of time, reversing the long river of time. It descended from the sky, killing one person, turning them into scattered ashes. At the same time his body shone, irregular scenes appearing, temporarily protecting himself. However, he was still too tired in the end, long reaching his later years. He originally forcefully extracted a mouthful of essence blood, temporarily recovering to his peak state to fight against the 7 archaic emperors, and then powerfully suppressed and killed them. Even if this type of battle accomplishment wasn't considered supreme since ancient times, it wasn't too far off. Then he fought against the Sky Emperor, exhausting too much. His blood energy declined, about to die in meditation. Right now, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight, unable to hold on any longer. After that little golden figure carried the cauldron and killed one person, it immediately grew dim. It had no choice but to rush back, entering the space between his brows. When the remaining 3 great supreme beings saw this, they began to attack fiercely, wishing to grind Yi Fan to death, not giving him a chance. During this process, Yi Fan took a deep breath. All of the starry splendor in the cosmos swept over, rushing into his body. He passively defended with his irregular scenes, wishing to catch his breath. When the situation was dire, an angry shout sounded from the distance. "You all deserve death, master, I'm coming." Komatsu had always been shy and pure, his beautiful and exquisite face often revealing a bashful smile. Even though many years had passed, he still had a pure and innocent nature. However, now he was furious, never like today. His head of light hair stood on end, his large eyes glaring angrily, killing intent overflowing into the heavens. A purple-gold pagoda trembled above his head, suppressing downwards. Hold on, by time for the Sky Emperor. He can still descend one more time. Someone roared. Sky Emperor's heart blood was too precious. For the Sky Emperor, it was an unmatched supreme treasure. Together with the living Sky Emperor's imprint, it could almost make the person on the other side of the flying immortal waterfall achieve immortality. However, the more powerful one was, the harder it was to cross realms. The restrictions were too terrifying. If not for the flying immortal waterfall, not even one arm of the undying Sky Emperor could cross over. It was just like how during the darkness chaos back then, the essence blood and immortal scriptures great Emperor Wuxia left behind worked together, but it still couldn't summon him back. There was only a void figure that appeared in front of that gate. Kill. Komatsu unleashed a great slaughter. In the past he rarely took lives, but now his anger rushed into the heavens, completely different from his immortal temperament. He was truly anxious and furious to the extreme. An intense confrontation. A terrifying confrontation erupted. This place erupted. For the sake of protecting his master, Komatsu went all out, all of his blood burning, not hesitating to pay the price to exhaust his potential, erupting with an aura that made even the universe tremble. With a pft, an ancient supreme being was finally killed by him. He was bathed in the blood of war, his entire body bright red. However, the other two were still disregarding everything, crazily attacking Yi Fan, wanting to break down his phenomenon. They wanted to rush in and kill him, seizing the Sky Emperor's imprint and essence blood. Boom. Suddenly, Yi Fan opened his eyes, stopped devouring the universe's starlight, and fiercely reached out a large golden hand, grabbing one of them. With a pft, he was directly crushed into meat paste. After launching this attack, he stood up, his body staggering and swaying. He wanted to attack the last person, but he was supported and blocked by Komatsu. Komatsu's entire body was burning with multicolored light, rushing over. Don't exhaust your own essence, there's no need to do this, Yi Fan said. He took a deep breath, and with a fierce shout, the myriad energy cauldron rushed out from the top of his head, turning into an eternal radiance, suppressing downwards. At the same time, Komatsu's purple golden pagoda also shook, the radiance of the great Tao erupting, attacking over. The last person was struck by the two weapons at the same time, turning into ashes on the spot. Suddenly, the flying immortal waterfall shook. A large sparkling white hand appeared again. This time, it didn't hold that heavenly blade, but instead directly slammed down, enveloping the world, its divine might matchless. The Sky Emperor appeared again. Even though he didn't use any weapons, his blood energy was matchless, his power unstoppable. In the blink of an eye, 5-colored immortal light appeared, as if a phoenix was spreading its wings. Sonorous sounds rang out, tearing apart the great cosmos. Komatsu walked up, protecting his master, about to resist that large hand. In the end, Yi Fan walked up, pulled him back, and then threw him into the desolate border of the cosmos. He himself released an explosive shout, swallowing the universe's 10 desolate starlight, blasting out a Sky Emperor fist. Yi Fan himself collided intensely with the Sky Emperor, because he knew that Komatsu hadn't become an emperor yet. If he rushed up like this, he would definitely die without a doubt. This attack was world-shaking, heaven and earth collapsing, divine light completely submerging this place. Master! Komatsu cried out loudly, tears in his eyes, rushing back like a madman. He saw that Yi Fan's entire body was covered in blood, every pore overflowing, his body swaying back and forth. Do you dare fight fairly against my master? Komatsu roared. That sparkling white hand retreated, returning to the flying immortal waterfall after colliding with the Sky Emperor fist, clearly suffering a heavy blow. Moreover, due to the restrictions of time and heaven and earth, it was difficult for him to cross realms. The flying immortal waterfall passed like time, about to disappear. Yi Fan released a cold snort. Even though his entire body was covered in blood, he still stood tall, activating the all-life energy cauldron, smashing into the flying immortal waterfall, about to cut it off. Ong. This made everyone shocked. The flying immortal waterfall that no one could destroy since ancient times was forcibly cut off a small section by Yi Fan, collecting it into the cauldron, flowing with a rain of light. On the other side of the flying immortal waterfall, the sound of a long blade trembling could be heard. The Sky Emperor was incomparably cold. The flying immortal waterfall having been cut off made his killing intent surge, wanting to forcefully descend again. However, at this time, a long and drawn-out bell sound shook the entire universe. Regardless of whether it was the other side or this side of the cosmos, they all trembled violently. Then the undying Sky Emperor let out a muffled groan. And then the flying immortal waterfall quickly dimmed, everything completely disappearing from this world. Chapter 1810. Master. Komatsu's eyes were tearing up. He was originally a weak and shy pure child. At this time, when he saw Yi Fan covered in blood and swaying violently, he couldn't help but cry out loud. Back then, when he was ignorant and still a Komatsu mouse, it was Yi Fan who brought him onto this different path. Now when he saw his master's head full of white hair, his chi and blood declining and about to die at any time, he was incomparably broken-hearted. He supported him while continuously shedding tears. Master, let's return to the celestial court, and take the undying medicine. Komatsu was about to carry Yi Fan on his back and bring him away. Yi Fan shook his head and had him put him down. He sat down in the starry sky without moving. His injuries were extremely serious, but this wasn't the main point. The most terrifying thing was that his body was about to dry up. Countless essence energy surged over from all over the cosmos. Many star domains became dark because many starry radiants were guided over and entered Celestial Emperor's body. Yi Fan adjusted his breathing. His entire body overflowed with lustrous precious light, drawing back all of the Celestial Emperor's blood that had splashed out and merging it into his body. Then, he refined the Supreme Being's blood energy into strands of essence, and refined them into divine essence to treat his body. His injured body healed, and his blood energy converged. Celestial Emperor's body seemed to have recovered, but this wasn't much. The most terrifying thing was the body's decline. This was difficult to reverse. Yi Fan's Celestial Emperor's body already couldn't store too much essence energy. After the starlight of the 8 desolations entered his body to a certain extent, it began to overflow on its own, and no longer accumulated. His body was declining and his blood energy dried up like a rotten iron pot. It couldn't hold too much water, and would leak out. It was a sign that he had one foot in the grave, and was about to end his life. Even divine medicines were useless. Yi Fan's situation was a sign of death. No one could save him, no precious medicine could bring him back to life. Under this kind of situation, even if he wanted to make the final leap and live a third life to save himself, he couldn't do so. He exhausted the last of his reserves, completely obliterating the divine core in his body in that world-shocking battle. Fighting against the 7 supreme beings was already his limit. Forcefully taking out a mouthful of essence blood to recover to his peak state was already a great loss for him. Then, fighting against the matchless undying heavenly emperor exhausted all the immortal essence he had accumulated. Master! Komatsu shed tears. He watched as his master, who was all-powerful in the past, difficult to defeat in the heavens above and earth below, now aged like this. His hair was white, blood-stained, and he was about to die in the passage of time. His heart felt as if it was being twisted by a knife. This kind of situation really made people feel helpless. If a person's soul fire was about to be extinguished, how could they continue to live? Yi Fan forcefully took a deep breath, otherwise his primordial spirit would completely dim. He laughed. The affairs of the world really were hard to predict. He actually reached this step, unmatched under the heavens for 50,000 years, but in the end he actually drew down the undying heavenly emperor's assassination. It was clear that the other party had experienced this type of later years as well, so he understood this type of state quite well. That was why when he took action, it was extremely targeted, wishing to erase the immortal essence within his body, not giving him a chance. People like them wouldn't die even if their bodies were ruined and their primordial spirits shattered. In their later years, the most precious thing was the long life essence they accumulated. That was the foundation they used to transform into their next life. Yi Fan had observed Guancheng, remembered the white-robed divine king, looked at the golden crow's arch, looked at the little divine silkworm, and had come into close contact with people who had lived a second life. He had already explored the mysteries of living another life in the dying years. There was a method to live one life, and it was difficult to repeat. He had accumulated it for many years just for this day. Although his body and spirit looked haggard, his lifespan was about to end, and his source had already dried up. That was only on the surface. Secretly, there was a trace of long life essence being born, just like a divine fetus. What a pity! Yi Fan had prepared for so long, but it was destroyed just like this. The heavenly emperor's attack was extraordinary and too tyrannical. If one didn't resist with all their strength, there was no way to block it at all. In reality, Yi Fan could guess that the heavenly emperor's attack was also mainly because of his celestial thearcha's imprint, as well as the long life essence he had accumulated that outsiders didn't know about. Don't cry. Yi Fan coughed up a mouthful of blood, and said to Komatsu with a smile. He had lived for more than 50,000 years, and was used to seeing life and death in the mortal world one after another. When it came to him, it was nothing. Master, I don't want you to die. Komatsu wiped away his tears and sat cross-legged on the opposite side. He wanted to refine his own source to prolong Yi Fan's life. Yi Fan shook his head and stopped him. That's useless. What is useful? Master, you definitely know, right? Please tell me, I will definitely find a way to live for you. Komatsu asked hopefully. Don't be sad. It won't be that easy even if the heavens want to take me away, because I still don't want to die. Yi Fan forcefully gathered a breath of essence energy, and his divine flame didn't dissipate. Just as he said, he had to resist. Even if he had one last breath left, he wouldn't give in. He had to work hard to live another life, because he still had some things to do. The oath and promise from back then were still by his ears. He had to unfold a vast battle map of long life. Gotcha. However, Yi Fan was truly too old. He had exhausted all his immortal essence, and his immortal foundation was covered in cracks, about to shatter at any moment. As for his body, it might directly be burned to ashes. He was at the edge of an extremely dangerous state. If he couldn't live another life, he would directly transform into the Tao, walking towards the end of his life. Who in the world could block a single strike from the undying Sky Emperor? How many people in the past could do so? And now Yi Fan did it, dragging his declining body to fight for such a long time. This was simply a miracle. For several days in a row, Yi Fan sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. He didn't return to the celestial court, and just sat there in the starry space, not moving at all. The outside world was already in an uproar. The Sky Emperor killed 7 ancient emperors in a single day. This was like a legend. Who could compare? The most shocking thing was that the undying Sky Emperor, who had disappeared for countless years, reappeared, fighting against the Sky Emperor. This was the reappearance of an immortal war, causing everyone's hair to stand on end. After that, their blood began to boil. The curtains fell on the battle, but the world wasn't at peace. The emotions of all clans were complicated, especially the powerful clans that worshipped the undying Sky Emperor. There was a type of indescribable emotion that couldn't be explained. Meanwhile, even more people were calling out the Sky Emperor's name, fighting to this step with his aged body, cutting off the flying immortal waterfall and forcing back the Sky Emperor. This was already the most glorious battle accomplishment that no one could compare to. The celestial court had long moved out. Endless celestial soldiers and generals were like dark clouds, surrounding this star domain to protect the Sky Emperor, waiting for his rebirth. Even though the outside world was saying that the Sky Emperor was in his later years, that he didn't have much time left, that he couldn't continue living anymore, the celestial soldiers and generals still weren't willing to accept this, believing that the Sky Emperor wouldn't leave this world. Only, everyone carried expressions of worry. Even though it was hard to accept the current situation, reality was right before their eyes. The Sky Emperor who intimidated the 9 heavens 10 earths, someone who couldn't be defeated, was really going to pass away in meditation. Komatsu moved the origin ancient mine that was exposed in this battle over. It was full of origin life stone, surging with life force. Yi Fan entered, borrowing this heaven-defying place to cultivate. For an entire half a month, Yi Fan's condition didn't change at all, maintaining that state of imminent death. Master was originally going to die, but his willpower was firm. He forcefully produced a bit of immortal essence, preserving his body in this world. Moreover, this origin ancient mine still has some use. I must think of a way to help Master reverse his fate. Komatsu was sad. After thinking for a while, he carried Yi Fan on his back and instantly tore through the void, disappearing from this world. No one knew where they went. On Earth, within the Kunlun Immortal Mountains, their figures appeared. Komatsu carried Yi Fan to the land of immortal ascension, the place where the green copper cauldron was nurtured. For an entire 10 years, they were cut off from the world. The outside world was spreading rumors that the Sky Emperor had died, ending his incomparably glorious and legendary life. What a pity, the Sky Emperor left this world just like that. What a pity. We weren't able to see his young body fight against the Sky Emperor at the peak. The undying Sky Emperor is truly terrifying. What method did he use to still live in his prime? Could it be that there is long life substance on the other side of the flying immortal waterfall? The Sky Emperor's strength is truly heaven-defying. What a pity for the Sky Emperor. In Kunlun, immortal energy surged. Flowing lights and vibrant colors filled the air, and dense mist lingered about. It was like an immortal realm. Komatsu activated this place with great magical power, causing the tens of thousands of dragon head peaks to spit out dragon saliva once again. it gathered towards the immortal ascension pond, causing immortal light to overflow and mist to fill the air. During these 10 years, Yi Fan sat in the immortal ascension pond without moving. The dragon's saliva flowed over and nourished his body, preventing it from worsening. It temporarily preserved his state. If he wanted to truly survive, he still had to rely on himself. Everything in the outside world was useless because this time, he was walking the path of living another life. Relying on divine medicines to extend his life was already useless. During these 10 years, Komatsu thought of all kinds of methods. He even took out a small section of the flying immortal waterfall from Yi Fan's cauldron, and studied this substance left behind on the path of long life. In the end, he didn't find a way to save his life. Instead, his cultivation increased imperceptibly. Another 3 years passed, and Komatsu brought Nan Nan to Kunlun. This time, the little girl slept for 3,000 years. She had just woken up, and seeing Yi Fan in this state, she immediately burst into tears. "Big brother, wake up." Yi Fan struggled to open his eyes and said, "Don't cry, Nan Nan. Big brother will be fine." The little girl continuously cried. Komatsu channeled all of her tears into the immortal ascension pond, but it was still ineffective. This was because Yi Fan was already the Sky Emperor. There was almost nothing in this world that could defy the heavens and change his fate. "Big brother, eat Nan Nan. You will definitely survive." The little girl actually said such words and kept on crying. The little girl, who looked to be only 2 or 3 years old, was begging the white-haired Sky Emperor, who was about to reach the end of his life, to eat her. It looked very strange, but it made everyone's heart grieve. Even Yi Fan's nose was a little sour. Waves rose in his heart. He helped her wipe away her tears and said, "Be good, Nan Nan. Don't think too much. Big brother doesn't want to die. Even the heavens can't take me away." Nan Nan doesn't want Big brother to die. The little girl's eyes were misty as she said pitifully, "Don't worry, I will definitely survive," Yi Fan answered. In reality, the ruthless great emperor in the desolate ancient abyss had undergone a mysterious transformation, and it seriously affected the little girl. She didn't stay here for long before she fell asleep again. "Komatsu, take her away. Don't let anyone come close. I want to meditate for 10 years. Yi Fan's gaze suddenly became firm as he ordered, "Master." Komatsu's heart trembled. "Don't worry, I have more or less comprehended it. Although there is only a little bit of immortal essence in my body, it is enough. I can take that step through nirvana," Yi Fan said. He felt a little bit of immortal essence, and these 10 years of lingering on the edge of death allowed him to comprehend even more. To live a new life and ascend to nirvana, he had to build his foundation on these ruins. Komatsu left and took Nan Nan with him. After this day, Yi Fan wandered between life and death. He thought of the desperate situation of the white-robed divine king back then, recalled the symptoms of little can always forget the past, and thought about what he had learned when he personally explored Guancheng and the Golden Crow's Arch. Time passed, and the placenta-like immortal ascension pond maintained Yi Fan's strange state of being immortal, buying him the most precious time. Not even 10 years had passed. 7 years later, this place overflowed with blood energy, piercing through the heavens and alarming all creatures in the universe. At this time, the outside world was saying that the celestial emperor had passed away in meditation, and that he no longer existed in this world. But today everyone was shaken. The boundless Tao were all wailing and bowing in submission, and the experts in the universe, no matter how far away they were, trembled and couldn't help but want to kowtow. Everyone looked in the same direction. No matter how far away they were, even if they crossed countless galaxies, they could still see the rushing fragments of time, and saw a wondrous scene that shocked the ages. Boundless blood energy overflowed into the heavens. The celestial emperor reappeared and slowly stood up. Within the vigorous blood energy and powerful vitality, he was reborn and rose up once again. That was a young celestial emperor, who was only about 20 years old. His black hair was like a waterfall that naturally draped over his sparkling body. He stood in the boundless sky and looked down on all living things. He had lived a third life and was so powerful that it made people's hearts tremble. Chapter 1811. The celestial emperor was reborn, his blood and energy like a sea. He rose up within the heaven-overflowing scarlet multicolored light, towering above the 9 heavens, overlooking the boundless great earth, looking down on the human realm. This shocked the world. Everyone was in an uproar. And then they were indescribably shaken. This was too toppling. No one would have thought that the celestial emperor would live another life. It was truly a miracle. Everyone thought that he would pass away in meditation, unable to escape this disaster. Birth, old age, sickness, and death were unstoppable. Yet he defied the heavens and performed such a magnificent feat. He was young and immeasurable, full of vitality, but he was also incomparably dignified. He walked out from that blue star, walking step by step into the depths of the cosmos, shocking everyone. The experts of the various races were all stupefied. Was this really a legend? Since ancient times, who could compare to the celestial emperor of 3 eras, all at the peak, never killing himself? Celestial emperor. At this moment, a storm swept through the cosmos. Many saints shouted the 2 words celestial emperor, stirring up even more people, because this was just too astonishing. In the endless cosmos, the celestial emperor reigned supreme, unrivaled. He fought the sovereign emperor with his dying body, yet he didn't fall, living a 3rd life. Who else could take him away? The 4 extremes of heaven and earth erupted, divine sounds resounding everywhere. Many people were stirred up, especially the endless people of the celestial court. They all went crazy, continuously shouting. Millions of troops roared. 100,000 divine generals roared, shaking the 9 heavens and 10 earths, becoming a stormy sea. At this moment, the cosmos was in great turmoil. Yi Fan defied the heavens and returned, truly unmatched in style. He was so young that it made people sigh in admiration. His long black hair scattered down, like a deity, eternal and undying, his entire body releasing undying radiance. If I enter the immortal world in the future, I will definitely cut down the sovereign emperor along the way. This was the celestial emperor's soft words, as well as his vow. Even though the cosmos was boundless, Yi Fan already crossed countless galaxies with just a few steps, returning to the celestial court. Komatsu was so moved that hot tears flowed out. His master was finally fine. At this time, countless armies were waiting outside the celestial court, welcoming the legendary celestial emperor, who didn't die for 50,000 years. Everyone was excited to the point of trembling. The celestial soldiers and generals stretched as far as the eye could see. Their metal armors were glistening, and the swords and spears in their hands were gleaming with cold light. This was an elite division, the king of hundreds of battles. Yi Fan retracted the heavenly emperor's aura. Otherwise, there weren't many people in this world who could endure it. His eyes swept over, and then his body released a gentle radiance. The auspicious light in the tens of thousands rushed towards everyone. At this moment, sonorous sounds rang out continuously. Everyone's armors and weapons released blazing radiance, and a few symbols appeared. Their levels all increased by a large amount. Everyone was horrified. What kind of matchless divine ability was this? It indiscriminately reversed everything, making all of the weapons evolve and sublimate. This was the blessing of the heavenly emperor, countless secret treasures appearing. Heavenly Varch. Everyone shouted, shaking the starry sky. Yi Fan returned to the celestial court, and sat on the cold throne, overlooking the vast world. He had finally lived the most crucial life, and his understanding of longevity had reached the frontier. That day, all of the powerful races in the cosmos came to pay their respects, to have an audience with the unmatched heavenly emperor. Mountain cries rang out continuously. This type of grand occasion continued for an entire month, and only then did it slowly calm down. The might of the celestial court reached its highest point in history. All of the races in the heavens came to pay their respects. Outside the celestial court, there were 3 grand temples. Immortal energy surged, and they became more and more spiritual. Yi Fan sat alone conversing with them. It was because there were already 3 wills that were born here. Even though they weren't truly old friends and had great flaws, they still allowed him to see hope. The 3 sects had already been established, and they were extremely powerful in the starry sky. It was precisely because of the establishment of the sects that the 3 grand temples were able to continue collecting the power of faith. No one disturbed him. Everyone knew that this was the loneliness that belonged to the heavenly emperor alone. After traversing 50,000 years, who could he talk to? The Komatsu was sealed, and the celestial court recovered its peace. The heavenly emperor was matchless, his radiance illuminating the cosmos, not many people able to walk side by side with him throughout the endless ages. His might intimidated the cosmos, all in the world having to submit. However, this radiance belonged to a single person. He was resplendent and dazzling, towering above the 9 heavens. Meanwhile, the world lacked experts. After more than 50,000 years, the heavenly emperor existed for a long time. It was as if he seized all of the world's natural luck, the various clans unexpectedly unable to produce another matchless expert. Meanwhile, the world's environment changed greatly as well, no longer suitable for cultivation. Now it reached its lowest point, suppressing all creatures, making everyone feel intimidated. This was a single person's glorious era, his brilliance dazzling the endless ages incomparable. However, compared to him, the people of the world were too dim, far from the past. They lacked the powerful quasi-emperor. After more than 50,000 years, during this endless period of time, only 2 quasi-emperors appeared, and neither of them reached the 9 heavens. In this era, the heavenly emperor would inspect the various regions from time to time. The restricted regions were completely wiped out, Origin Ancient Mine becoming the Celestial Court's divine level storage land. There were no more sources of disaster in this world. Time flowed like water, 20,000 years passing in the blink of an eye. However, the life of this era's heavenly emperor seemed to be especially long. Even at 20,000 years of age, his hair was still black like a waterfall, his blood energy exuberant. He relied on himself to live in this era, different from the masses, making him even more powerful. With a wave of his hand, he could destroy the entire spacetime. That day, Yifan caught a strand of flowing light in a deathly still star domain. He revealed a look of shock. This was an imprint left behind by the Qilin ancient emperor, recording his experiences and insights on the path of immortality. He sat here for a long time, only getting up after 10 years. His gains weren't small. This was already the 4th type of imprint he obtained from the cosmos. There were other ancient supreme beings before him, each of them having their own wonders, all of them people who had stepped onto the path of immortality. The heavenly emperor was already more than 70,000 years old. Yet he was still alive, suppressing the universe, known to be at the pinnacle of the world. Now his dignity wasn't something many people could compare to. If it was mentioned, it would also be compared to the legendary heavenly emperor Huang, who no one knew existed. When he was 22,000 years old, Yifan's hair began to turn white. This year, when he revealed a star ruin, his expression changed. There were star fragments everywhere, and it was a dilapidated place. He turned into a ray of light and appeared on the spot, grabbing a star fragment with his hand. It sounded like picking up a flower, but in fact, it was a large continent that was captured. The root of the divine medicine. Yifan split this continent, picked up a medicine cauldron from an underground palace, opened the seal, and found a dry root that had lost its vitality and luster. Before the dark upheaval, the races of the Big Dipper fled to other places and entered the starry sky. This was the refuge of the ancient Chinese dynasty. Through the relics here, Yifan deduced the origin of this race. Unfortunately, the ancient Chinese dynasty that hid here was destroyed, leaving only a remnant. Only the current celestial sovereign could sense that there was a dry, strange root sealed in the medicine cauldron, and he had a great fate with this medicine. He had cut out a remnant in the northern divine city, sealed in the ice and snow source at that time. The root was light blue, but the medicinal part was missing, leaving only a tuber that looked like a human foot. Based on the situation at that time, it was a dead divine medicine with almost all of its divinity lost. No one could save it, so Yifan auctioned it. Unexpectedly, after 50,000 years, Yifan met it again. It was almost withered, and even the last bit of divinity had disappeared. Even with Celestial Sovereign's current status and state of mind, he sighed. It was really a pity. If he guessed correctly, this should be the human-shaped divine medicine that was once controlled by Di Zun. If Yifan had his current cultivation, he would definitely be able to save it, but now, It was completely withered and lost all vitality. It was rumored that since ancient times, a total of 30 immortal medicines had appeared, including those in the form of trees. Every one of them was unique, but now, half of them had disappeared. Could it be that another one was going to be lost? Yi Fan frowned. This one was definitely the most special one, because after it grew, it was in the form of a human. Yi Fan returned to the celestial court and lived in seclusion, beginning to study the immortal medicine. Since ancient times, some great emperors and ancient emperors had possessed immortal medicines, and studied them to obtain the mysteries of longevity. In this life, Yi Fan had also studied the white tiger medicine, Tao comprehension tea, Bodhi tree, and so on. He obtained great results, but it couldn't be considered too shocking. This time he planted the human-shaped divine medicine in Immortal Mountain, drawing in divine spring water in hopes of saving it. The celestial court definitely did not lack immortal medicines. The Qilin medicine, white tiger medicine, and so on matured once every 4,000 to 5,000 years. Yi Fan had already harvested them more than 10 times and stored them all. Meanwhile, the peach of immortality, Bodhi fruit, and rare divine fruits from the Tao comprehension tea tree had also been harvested many times. However, Yi Fan really wanted to save this unique human-shaped immortal medicine. That was why he used great methods, not even hesitating to refine a portion of the divine essence from the Qilin and white tiger he had already harvested to nourish this medicine. In the end, he even used his own life spring divine liquid to water the roots of the human-shaped precious medicine. 3,000 years later, a miracle happened. The withered roots gradually regained a bit of vitality. In the end, it flowed with specks of luster and released vitality. Yi Fan's eyes didn't blink at all as he stared at this medicine. The light in Celestial Emperor's eyes was intimidating. He was carefully observing every detail of this rebirth, seeing through this medicine's regeneration process. Without a doubt, this held great significance for him. It could even be said that the effects were extremely far-reaching and immeasurable. In this world, only the undying medicine could live forever. Watching it wither and grow, reproducing vitality from an almost dead state, was the same as grasping the path of immortality. Specks of multicolored splendor flickered. After another 1,000 years of time, the withered roots came back to life, once again flourishing with vitality. It first became a faint blue color, then a scarlet multicolored light, and then a golden color. In the end, it gathered 9 colors, becoming extremely dazzling. Meanwhile, at this time, Yi Fan's hair had long turned white. It was because he was already 26,000 years old, but his blood energy was more vigorous than in his previous 2 lives. His age didn't show any signs of decline. However, he still didn't get up, sitting in front of this medicine. Year after year, day after day, he watched as it sprouted. Time flew by, and another 4,000 years passed. This medicine's tender shoot gradually grew into a foot-tall little person. It didn't have any leaves, and its entire body flowed with radiance. It was incomparably brilliant, and its fragrance pervaded the entire undying mountain, shocking the celestial court. At this time, Yi Fan was already a full 30,000 years old, finally reaching the end of this era. However, his state of mind was peaceful because his harvest was too great. This medicine can be a grass or a tree, all of them humanoid, extremely miraculous. Yi Fan said softly. Right now, it was a humanoid medicine. Back then, he had also seen its humanoid tree form in the ruins of the celestial court. All types of rumors had long appeared in the outside world. This era's celestial emperor lived for 30,000 years, existing in this world for more than 82,000 years. It was just too shocking. Everyone speculated that he should have finally reached the end. However, half a year later, the celestial court's undying mountain overflowed with blood energy. Celestial Emperor's divine might was matchless, his aura devouring the 8 desolates of the cosmos. Powerful life force engulfed and stirred up the cosmos. This time, Yi Fan watched the process of the humanoid immortal medicine's reversal from death to life. He was greatly moved, comprehending unmatched true meanings, living a 4th life. Celestial Emperor. He lived another life. Everyone felt their mouths go dry, simply unable to comprehend all of this. If those people from back then lived until now, they would definitely be numb to this, because this wasn't the first